You're listening to Radio Flange Goblet, and before any of you write in and complain, we had the parakeet shot from a cannon into James Caan's swimming pool. The two of them are said to be very happy and have moved to Lanzarote, where they raise polecats and cheat on cards. Before we continue our evening show, here's a clip from our new light entertainment reality news quiz show drama, Inside Let's Make a Dancing with the Stars Deal Edition, hosted by Carlos Bang Bang What's My Ladder. Alright, so Alan, you've just won the miniature Corvette, a photograph of Dame Maggie Smith petting a donkey, 3 locks of used muskrat hair, lime green pajamas, and tonight's headlines, which are 5 dead, an explosion at unwieldy rubber sex aid factory during a Black Friday event, Merlin push-up bra has this report. But before we go over to Merlin, Alan, hold this, will you?
What, this bowl of pudding?
No, just hold the damn pudding, will you? Now, to the strains of the Herb Griffin Triangle Orchestra and some blind bastard on an accordion, former child star, heroin addict, owner of bowels, and insufferable prick, Curtsy Berringhume will dance the Lithuanian rumba with professional dancer Getty Pamelichop, who at this point is so sick of this egotistical, stiff wanker that she'll do anything to scupper their chances from moving into the semi-finals. And while that happens, Graham, come over here. Come over here. Past the washing machines. Down over here between the large inflatable gnome and the torture devices. Stand on that spot. Hurry up, man. Hurry up. Come on. Stand there. Now, Graham, what are you dressed up as?
Bernie Taupin.
Nobody knows who that is, but okay, let's move on. So, before the break, you had 2 twangs, 1 spillip nugget, and you'd given up taking Maria Klunk to Ireland for a long weekend arguing in a caravan and decided instead to risk it all for the deluxe back-waxing lotion and this news story about Missouri Governor Mike Parson, who, on Thursday, called for an investigation of a journalist for finding, helping fix, and reporting about a vulnerability in a government website that exposed the social security numbers of teachers in the state. Parson said he had notified the Cole County prosecutor and that the Missouri State Highway Patrol was investigating alleged unauthorized access. Oh, who has time for any of this bollocks? Anyway, before we go back to Graham, here's a really, really cute picture of a dachshund strapped onto the wing of a light aircraft with a tiny, tiny pilot's helmet and goggles. Now, Graham, smash those porcelain badges with that meat hammer.
Why?
It's all part of the game. Smash away.
Oh, okay.
And so, Betty RuPaul Group Fastener, you're in the new film When the Tide Runs. What can you tell us about it? Keep smashing, Graham.
Well, I'm just living my truth, I'm just doing my own thing, being powerful as a woman, and nobody can take that from me.
Excellent, Betty. Thanks for those insights. Now, it's over to my co-host, Tits Napkin by the Dunking Pools, where 3 lucky matronly types will get 5 opportunities to guess which of 7 foxes are really 4 little people in a furry suit, while the Mormon Tabernacle Choir are going to be forming a human pyramid. Keep smashing, Graham. And that show is going to be airing every 30 minutes in between our sports coverage and the occasional 5-minute segment of opera maven Gertie Frump-Tally screaming at dogs. The only other thing that this station has going on anymore is the After-Movie Diner, which limps into its 11th year with only some of its teeth and almost none of its ballsack intact.
You're listening to the sweet sounds of the After Movie Diner. Support us at patreon.com/After Movie Diner. Or I'll punch you in the teats. Rate and review us on iTunes, Earthling. And now, here's your host, Jon Cross.
That's right, I am Jon Cross, and at the moment, I'd like you to kindly imagine me stretched out on a chaise longue, dressed as Rue McClanahan, eating an unhealthy amount of cheese snacks. My guest on the show tonight is a person for whom the word person just isn't enough. Yes, he has 2 arms, 2 legs, a face, and a multitude of other bits, but fleshy jelly sacks don't maketh a man. So it was written in Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's Little Book of Useless Wisdom, available now at Starbucks. No, my co-banterer on this show is more than just the word human. He is an author, a blogger, a podcaster, a collector of fetching pink crochet sheaths, a fighter, an all-nighter, and an ankle biter when you get him all riled up or drunk on blackcurrant cordial and beans. You may know him, but definitely can't spell him, as the direct-to-video connoisseur, but to me, he will always be Poirier. Poirier. Matt Poirier, or Matt Poirier, or Matt Poirier, or Matt Poirier. However you pronounce it, he's a wonderful gentleman, and I'm very happy to have him on the show. Matt, how you doing, man?
Good. How about you?
Good, thank you. Yes, congratulations on your second self-published novel.
Thank you very much, and congratulations as well for great music that you've put out this past year. 3 albums, I think, since we last, 2, because Heart Can Be a Shambles, or actually no, 3, because we had The Pleasancing as well.
This last year, kind of 2020, 2021 cycle, I put out Where Are Hearts in 2020. Since then, Oldie Goodie and Rusty Fixtures, that was kind of back catalog stuff. Truer Crime, so that's the first full album since Where Are Hearts of original stuff. Pleasancing 2. Then I did another back catalog release, Rough Ass Demos and Unreleased Tracks. Then I've Been There, which was another full band album. Then Splang, which was another release. Then Conspiracy Theories. So that's 5 albums. And then I've also done 3 EPs. 2 EPs since then. So 5 albums, 2 EPs, 1 single, and then 2 albums of unreleased /rare/demo versions.
Yeah, amazing stuff. I mean, it's just amazing. I think it was like almost every month that Bandcamp had their Fridays.
Yes.
Almost every month you had something.
Yeah, well, that was the point. That was what I was trying to do, and then inevitably slowed down. I mean, basically a ton of stuff happened here at home, so Kim broke her ankle, so we were dealing with that. That was sort of 2 months stuff. I've been learning to drive, so I take my test tomorrow. Very exciting.
That's amazing.
This is Jon Cross from the future, and just to let everyone know, I did pass. I passed my test. Woohoo! I'm a driver now, licensed and everything. We've moved house. So a lot happened that kind of meant that I slowed down. And then I'm working on a new album. I have 6 tracks of a new album done.
Wow.
But this is going to be another full band album. So I've put it out to my contributors and everything. And so I would like to have it available for November's Bandcamp Friday. But if not, December's. So
yeah. Wow, that is absolutely amazing. I can say about the driving thing, my wife and I don't drive.
Okay.
Neither of us have our licenses. And so I've thought about, I've actually done driver's ed, so I kind of know it, but I'm so out of practice. So we thought with the pandemic we realized because we spent all this time doing public transportation, then it's suddenly we have really no way to get out of the city. Could have just rented a car or something like that.
Yeah. No, mine was more. I mean, mine was definitely. I'd lived in cities for best part of 25 years on and off, and never needed it. And certainly when I was in the UK, you can take a train everywhere in the UK. I mean, there's trains in hedgerows next to coffee shops in the middle of nowhere. You stumble over train stations in the UK. And so I never needed to drive in the UK. It was I need to get to the next town over. I hop on a train for 5 minutes. But moving here to the countryside, and I knew I was moving to the countryside, I was like, okay, great. Got here in March, early April, pulled the trigger with the DMV. They didn't have a learner's permit, written test, whatever you want to call it, until July 14th. So I was like, okay, I've got 3 months to do the safety course, the 8-hour online safety course. It's just 4 2-hour courses basically that you have to pass, and then you go in and do your written with the DMV. Did all that, passed all that, and then I had 8 hours in the hopper with my driving school of actual road driving. But because in Connecticut you have to hold a learner's permit for 90 days before you can take your test. So literally 90 days from July 14th is October 12th. So tomorrow is the 91st day. So that's me taking my test as soon as possible. It took basically almost a whole year, and that's as soon as possible.
Yeah, it's funny because here, I grew up in Maine, so I'm kind of a rarity, somebody who doesn't drive there. So I would bike a lot, or I lived in areas where I could get to things. But my wife, of course, being here in Philadelphia, when I moved down here, I met people all over the place who never had their license down here.
Right.
And but it is interesting because I also see the driving schools around here, driving cars, and the idea of me learning to drive here in this city in Philadelphia, in particular South Philly, where there's cars parked everywhere. Like I don't know how experienced drivers are able to make it through like the thin streets that we have here. And the idea of me learning, but at the same token, I do kind of like the idea of just finally just getting it, just to have it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I found, so I'd had years of, at 16, everyone in the UK, like they do in the US, it's like, oh, everyone's going to get their driving lessons done and then they're going to pass their test. And I started down that road. I did 2 lessons and then on one fateful day went out with my dad in the car. And within about 5 minutes, my dad was just like, you're never going to get this. You're terrible. You're awful. You're never going to do this, right? Which is the English equivalent of I love you, right? That's the that's the repressed English equivalent of I'm glad you're my son. Is,
right.
You've disappointed me. You're never going to do this. You're terrible. That's the English repressed version of I love you. So I had that ringing in my ears. So I basically canceled the rest of my lessons. So I never took my test when I was 16, 17. Just assumed and thought the worst of myself. My moods on dry land never seemed, and my anxiety and everything else never seemed suitable for putting me behind the wheel of a car. And as recently as my own wedding in 2018, so at this point I'm a 38-year-old adult. I've moved across the world. I've held a job for many decades. Like, I'm an up. So we had golf carts at our wedding because we were on a summer camp. So we had golf carts to just kind of keep everyone together and get from like the archery down to the pond or whatever and back again. And so I'm like, oh, I'm definitely driving one of those. That looks awesome. And even getting on a golf cart, which goes like 8 miles an hour at best, right? It's not a fast thing at all. Even getting on a golf cart, my mum and my dad were like, Who let John on a golf cart? Like I'm not a 38-year-old man with rent payments and everything else, right? They were like, who let John on a golf cart? So even as recently as like 3 years ago, my parents were trying to be like, he's not responsible enough to basically drive a kid's toy. You know what I mean? So yes. Even that recently, I was still being bombarded by my family with like, you are an irresponsible tyke who's never going to amount to anything. So I'd had that mixed with my anxiety for like 25 years. What I will say to you, and the reason why I tell that whole story is I definitely beat myself into the ground about doing it. And I definitely looked at the roads and drove as a passenger because Kim's a driver and my ex was a driver and have definitely driven as a passenger for decades. And have always thought like, I'm too nervous, I'm too anxious, I'm not going to be able to do it. I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they maneuver down, like you say, with people parking both sides in a city, blah, blah, blah. All I can tell you is when you do it, for whatever reason, all those things you think you're going to be nervous about, that's not what you're nervous about. You're nervous about stupid things like, how do I put the windscreen wipers on while I'm driving? Like, you're nervous about stuff like that. You're not nervous about everyone else on the road, because what you realize when you start to drive is that the only thing you can it's much like life. Only thing you can control is you. Everyone else on the road be damned, right? So as long as you're not, driving at a schoolyard full of children, you're all right. You're doing well. You're doing good. You know what I mean? So, and everything is set up so that you don't crash. You know what I mean? If you follow the speed limit, if you yield when you yield, if you obey traffic lights, everything is set up so you don't crash. The fact that crashes happen is the same reason why there are people out there who are not getting vaccinations. Humanity is just, hell-bent on self-destruction and stupidity.
Yeah, it's funny because my mom visited here in Philadelphia a few weeks ago, and we went down to Washington, D.C. to see a Nationals baseball game.
Yeah.
And it was amazing to see. But then I went to New England to see a Patriots game with my brother, and I think there's nothing worse than the Massachusetts driver. I think, here along the East Coast, you've got all kinds of different types of bad driver, but the Massachusetts driver, there's just something, I think we lucked out with the whole no flying cars thing because I just can't imagine that happening in Massachusetts with that driver.
No, that would be the worst idea ever. Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, and so, but my brother, he was like maneuvering through all of that, and it just kind of blew my mind. But yeah, I did, and I think it was 2009. I'd gotten another learner's permit, and I was planning to, and I was actually going out with my dad to, practice. I'd moved back home for a little bit, and the brakes in my mom's car weren't great, and so I had trouble maneuvering. And my dad, he was so freaked out by being in the car with me that he just, when we got home, he's just like, no, either we're paying for him to get lessons or, and of course in Maine, they don't really have adult lessons that I know of. It's mostly done through high school. So, but yeah, I'm still thinking about it. I'm still, pondering the possibility.
Well, if I can be any kind of example or encouragement to you, sir, I will be that thing, because yeah, I mean, it's, it became even more important once Kim broke her ankle. Now, thankfully, as I go to get my test tomorrow, Kim's actually walking with just one crutch now and is doing really, really well, and hopefully will at least be fit to drive in the next few weeks, even if she doesn't right away. So, but when that happened, you really suddenly realize, when neither of you drive, and we'd moved out to the woods by that point. It wasn't like we were in a city center. I mean, having to rely on friends and family and everyone else for the last 2-3 months has been, because I'm not like that. I mean, a lot of people do favors and I'm incredibly grateful, but if I can't repay the favor, it really does weigh on me. I just kind of get very antsy, and the fact that I've had to have everyone help me kind of do everything since Kim's been incapacitated has weighed on me. So I'm like, I can't even, once I can drive, I can't even wait to just be like, okay, who needs a lift? Who needs who needs help? Who needs whatever? So, I'm really looking forward to that as well. So, yeah, it's going to be a good day. I think it's going to happen. I think I've got it nailed down. The people I did the driving school with were really, really, really good. I had one experience. So they didn't set me up with one teacher for all 8 lessons. And so I did the first 2 with one woman, the next 2 with another woman who I really liked. The second one, she was really good, and I felt like she was teaching me like I would want to be taught. I was able to kind of be like, hey, pretend I don't know what a car is. Start at, because I'm like that. You teach me the baby steps, I'll jump 10 steps ahead, but I need that basic, right? So I would say to her, teach me like I'm a fucking idiot. Teach me like I'm a 14-year-old who just fell off a truck, has no idea what's happening. Please teach me that way, because I'll learn better that way. And I just know that about myself. Anyway, come the 5th lesson, I pull up to the driving school, and there's this dude in a moth-eaten, grotty baseball cap, right? Mustard stains on a t-shirt, overweight, big handlebar mustache, smoking a cigarette right outside the driving school. And I'm like, he's not my teacher, right? So I go into the driving school, and the woman behind the counter is like, yeah, and I don't know what his name is, but we'll call him Jeff. I'm just like, yeah, Jeff's outside waiting for you. I'm like the guy with the mustache, and she's like, yeah. I'm not sure about this. So anyway, I do a lesson with this guy. First of all, not wearing a mask.
Right.
I mean, I'm wearing 13 masks, a hazmat suit, gloves. I'm double vaccinated, everything like that. But this guy clearly, right off the bat, he's spouting, NRA bollocks and libertarian claptrap stuff about Afghanistan. He's just talking to me about this stuff. He says shit like, you'd be surprised how many kids in Danbury, Connecticut are actually conservative. And I'm like, do you talk to children about your mad conspiracy theories? Because I think I kind of want to get you fired if you're talking to children about mad dark web, QAnon or whatever bollocks. So I do the whole lesson with him, and then I very politely go into the school, and I'm like, so that's never happening again. I would like my 5th lesson redone, please. And I would like to be taught the rest of the lessons by Miss Mercado, who I thought was really cool, and she taught me really well. This is super important. I get my test, and I'm not learning anything with this guy. Right. So that was the one mad experience. Sure enough, I got my 5th lesson back, and the last 4 lessons were with the person I wanted with. But yeah, that was a really weird experience, because I'm like, not only was he massively unsafe, He's like, well, I can already tell you and I are diametrically opposed on COVID. I'm like, you realize it's not a debate. Like, there's no debate here. It is a disease that's killed 600 plus thousand people. Like,
it just in this country.
Yeah. This isn't up for some sort of like philosophical discourse. Well, we're diametrically opposed on the state of COVID. It's like saying, I'm not sure I believe in this whole air thing. It's completely bizarre to me that people are like that.
Yeah.
But
there are a lot of hospitals that are filled with, currently filled with people who are diametrically opposed, and the virus decided to explain that there is no, it's not up for debate.
The hospitals around the country are currently filled with fakers who are just putting it on to waste hospital time and spend all of their money because they're all uninsured idiots who probably don't believe in health insurance either. Or some
They've all got GoFundMes. Once they get to the deathbed stage, that's when it's GoFundMes and prayer warriors, and and unfortunately for a lot of these people, I have to say, because my Red Sox are in the playoffs right now. I'm summoning all of the prayer warriors and getting all of God's attention, so it's not going to work in that case.
No, I should find some of these these Republican GoFundMes and just write on them and just say, I'm afraid I can't afford any money, but hopes and prayers, or whatever it is. I will give you the same courtesy that you give children that have been shot in the face. How about that? I'll give you the same beneficial rhetoric. As children, innocents being shot in the face. I will give you the same.
Go. Thoughts and prayers. That's what you got.
Thoughts and prayers, hopes and prayers, whatever you got. Thoughts and prayers.
I can do for you.
That's all you got. But listen, I'm praying for you to pull out of it. I'm an atheist, but I'm praying for you to pull out of it.
I prayed earlier, and God delivered this vaccine thing that was supposed to do the trick, and unfortunately, apparently, something happened there where the wires got crossed. But that was.
We're literally living in the parable of the guy who, and I forget what joke it is. I don't know if it's a Jewish joke or a Catholic joke, but the guy who's drowning.
Right, yeah.
And like the fish comes by and says, "Can I swim you to shore?" And he's like, "No, God will save me." And then a guy comes by in a boat and he's like, "Can I help you?" And he's like, "No, God's going to save me." Yeah. And then something else happened, like a raft comes,
a
helicopter comes down. He's like, "Don't worry, God's going to save me." And when he drowns and gets the pearly gates, this is the first bit of the joke that doesn't make any sense, because if he's that stupid, why is he going to heaven? Like, anyway, but he goes to heaven and he's like, "God, why didn't you save me?" And he said, "Well, I sent a fish, a boat, and a helicopter." And that's what I always say to people about the vaccine. I'm like, first of all, if you believe in God, you've got to believe that God rained this plague down on us. Like, you can't claim the plague is man-made, but God's going to save me. That doesn't work. Either God's in control of everything or not. You know what I mean? Right. You can't have it both ways. But secondly, when they go, well, I don't trust the vaccine. It's man-made. If it wasn't tested long enough, blah, 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 blah. God will save me or whatever. I'm like, how do you know God didn't invent the vaccine? You know what I mean?
Right. Yes. I think the thing that blows my mind is how people don't. We've got, I guess, because we've had vaccines that are so effective, I guess people don't understand how vaccines really work. Because, like, for so long, people are like, well, people are still getting COVID with the vaccine. And it's like, well, yeah, we knew that was going to happen. It's just that nobody, people aren't going to the hospital.
Well, because people don't realize that even the polio vaccine, one of the most successful vaccines ever created, still took 50 years and 3 generations to pass through the system. And it wasn't until every single child of a whole generation all got vaccinated as just a matter of course that we eliminated it. But if only half of the people are going to do it, and they're going to do it in like a scattershot kind of, well, I'll have one on Tuesday and I might not get another one till next year. If you're going to do it that way, well, of course it's not going to be effective. Like, it's only effective if everyone joins the program. And I know that sounds a bit like the Hitler Youth, but sometimes the government can be good for some things. And as suspicious as I am of the people in power, the small amount of risk of putting a protein in my body that might stop me from dying seemed to outweigh the massive hideousness of dying from a horrible illness and a respiratory disease. So, I don't know. I weighed up the pros and cons going, microscopic protein that my body will figure out, or a massive disease that my body can't fight off. I'll kind of,
Yeah, not only that, it was a free thing, and it was a free thing that allowed me to take a day off from work. So it was, a paid day off from work in my case. So I was fortunate there.
Right.
That is my privilege in that sense that I'm working for a company that gave me a paid day off. But still, just the same.
My favorite line about the whole thing is, well, we still don't know what's in it. And I'm like, no, actually, what's funny about it is I know more about what's in this vaccine than anything I've ever been administered by science before or since.
I certainly know.
Like, you can literally read an article that's what is in the COVID vaccine.
Right.
You can literally read that from every publication you could possibly imagine. Left, right, center, science, government, dark web, whatever. Everyone has covered this. The Frotter's Guide to, pegging has covered what's in COVID vaccine.
I certainly know more about what's in that than the Doritos that I eat from time to time, or the sodas that I drink, or whatever horrible junk food I'm putting in my system.
Or the MMR vaccine that we give to everybody as a matter of course. I never forget, so when I came to the US, this is another funny thing about being an immigrant, right? When I came to the US, you have to have a full medical, right? And you have to have a full medical, which you have to pay for from a private doctor in London that's the only doctor that does it as part of the American embassy. And it costs thousands of pounds. It's ridiculous. Yeah. One of the things they do is they go through all the vaccinations that any child in America would normally have, and they make sure you have the equivalent, right? And because I was of an age where my medical records were still partially on bits of paper, because obviously computers didn't exist when I was a kid. Some of my records by the NHS had been updated digitally, so they were able to call some of it up. But they were like, we have no record of you having an MMR. And I'm like, well, everyone has an MMR. And they're like, yes, but we have to give you one because we have to have it, whatever. So I've even had 2 MMR. I didn't even, I'm sat in a doctor's office and it's like, you either get to go to America and pay $150 for another MMR vaccine, even though you know for a fact you've had it because every child in the UK has it, but they can't prove it on paper, or you don't go to America. So I was just like, well, I guess I'm having this vaccine then. I didn't sit there and either whine about it, question what was in it. It was just like, here's your I paid for the privilege. Here's your £175. Please inject me with whatever you're injecting me with because I want to go to America. End of story. You know what I mean? So it's fascinating to me that this whole we're going to base it on some scribbled line drawing that Tucker Carlson did in his sleep.
Who's vaccinated?
Yeah, who is vaccinated? Right, exactly. Well, they all are. I mean, hypocrites. So anyway, yes, I've been for the last 2 years. I've just been hiding out. I think the last episode you were on, we did when the lockdown first happened. We did everyone's top 5 or whatever, and I think you forced me to watch some Albert Python.
What's funny is I ended up doing Bulletproof Action asked me for my top Albert Python, and that list was just so absurd that I think only one of mine matched everybody else's. They were just what do we do with this list? I wonder if I was even the impetus for them coming up with honorable mentions, because it was just we can't, we asked them for this stuff, but then we can't use any of it.
No. But no, so I did that for a bit. Then Jim and I just went back to kind of doing our weekly thing. But it definitely got to the 10th anniversary, which, because of Kim's foot and various other stuff, took me an age to edit. Also, it was multiple interviews and 4 hours long. It was a real behemoth of a show. And it was funny. I was editing that show, and I just sort of thought, this feels weirdly like a line being, it feels final. Yeah. It felt very if this is the last episode I do, great. That's fine. That'll do. And I was chatting with Jim, and he had no interest really in continuing doing the Skype episodes. Not that he wouldn't on occasion, but it just wasn't his thing. He much preferred it when we could go out in person and whatever. And I'm not even living in the city anymore. I'm not that far from it. So when I feel COVID is at a safe enough level, I will maybe start doing monthly trips back to New York, but to see him, if nothing else. But right now, obviously that's not happening. It hasn't been happening prior to this. So he definitely didn't want to carry on with just the Skype episodes. And I was editing the 10th anniversary, and I thought to myself, while I would be happy if this is the last one and whatever, it wouldn't bother me. I felt that while I really enjoyed the Jim episodes and the the rapport and that kind of regular thing that I had for a few years. The one thing I kind of missed was, if I'm going to do a victory lap with the show, I want to do it in the way that I used to do it right back when I started. So I want to write some comedy sketches again. I want to do some funny music. I want to do the spoiler songs and all that stuff that I used to do. Kind of want to bring that back and just do sort of a victory lap where I speak to everyone that has either ever been on the show or shown interest in being on the show, and I kind of do 1 or 2 episodes with them. And then depending on how I feel after that, and also depending on how much effort it takes to rally everyone. So that's where I'm at with the whole podcast thing. And also I wanted to kind of, if I'm doing one more round, I want it to kind of be a sort of mix of everything I've done. So a mix of crosstalk, a mix of booth talk, a mix of the diner. And so that's the plan. You're the first person I'm kind of doing an episode with, and we're already having a great chat. So it's great. It's already going to be an awesome beginning to the show, because I like having the show where it's like 30 minutes of banter and then 30 minutes of film. I don't want it to just be a stale kind of and now we're talking about the film thing. So I already enjoyed this. So that's where I'm at with the show, dude, and that's what's happening. How's your show doing, and how's your website doing and everything? How's direct-to-video Connoisseur coming along?
So I ran into trouble this summer. My job got kind of crazy. I don't know if you know. So I work for a company that handles teachers who teach English as a second language online, and they teach to adults. And the market was really big in China, and the Chinese government or for Chinese kids in China, and the Chinese government essentially just said no more foreigners teaching kids English online outside of China, and it just completely torpedoed the industry. And then we just had this glut of teachers coming, looking to so it's been like this crazy summer, and I'm finally just sort of digging out from it now and saying like, okay. And I realized, like, I think in your case, I think with you, we had talked about maybe coming on in the beginning of the year with what happened was, the thing that happened was MVD. There's somebody who represents. There's like a publicist or something who represents MVD Video.
Clint
who
Weiler.
reached out. Yeah, and he said something like, Clint Weiler, exactly. And so he reached out about them putting Action USA on Blu-ray, and I was like, oh, I'll go for the screener of that. That's great. And it just never came. And I think that was my thing. I was like, because I think we were talking about you coming on to do that movie.
We've done an episode on it years ago. I think Bosch from Comeuppance Reviews Mo's old friend had said to me about that movie years ago, and had got me a screener, just an old digifile. And Doc had never heard of it, and we did it as an episode on Dr. Action. I still have that file. If you want that file, we can do it off.
Yeah, no,
I can certainly send you the digi file that I have, which is good enough to at least watch the movie if you want to talk about it. So
yeah, well, it's also, I mean, because we still have cable, and we got Xfinity. It's like $3 to rent too. So I mean, I could always bite the bullet and do that too. So yeah, either way is fine. But I was like, I remember, I think what happened was, it was like, wow, it's like the summer, and DVD never came, and and I there's a few other people that I talked about coming on the podcast that I never. And what ends up happening is Ty and Brett, from Comeuppance, they it's just kind of one of those things where it's like, yeah, I'll go on your show, and okay, you guys come on mine. And so it kind of just works out like as an easy thing. And but then it's like, but now I'm not reaching out to anybody, and so I've got to kind of get back into that groove of like reaching out and being like, hey, it's a good night if you want to come on the show, and we're going to talk about this or something like that.
Well, it's funny because I had hit about, I think it was 341 episodes was the 10th anniversary. I think it was the 342nd or 341st episode. So it worked out that I was sort of averaging 34 episodes a year. And it's funny, a lot of the times that I had taken those breaks, either forced by life or because I just had burnt out for a bit, it's very often in that kind of July, August period where you kind of, because normally I didn't do it this year, but normally we've done like Sleazy Spade of Springtime and then a few of the summer blockbusters, by which point I'm kind of like, okay, I just need a break for 6 weeks and then I'll come back to it. So, so I've only ever done kind of 34, 35 episodes a year on average, taking, the remainder of 15, 16 weeks off at various times throughout the year, and normally in a chunk over the summer. I was going back through my releases, and during the summer apparently my energy wanes. It comes back during the winter. Once the dark months come in and dark nights come in, and I don't feel so guilty about sitting in a dark room at 9 p.m. at night. That's probably what it is. I probably feel like I should somehow like be out in the world or something during the summer, even though I hate it.
Exactly.
Even though I look around the world and I'm like, no, my bedroom's much nicer. But yeah, so I'm fine with that. But I look at this as our victory lap. So there's even less restrictions than there were before on the diner. There's even less focus on us than there ever was before. The episodes will come out when they come out. People will listen or they won't. But I'll have done what I set out to do. That's how I look at it.
I think it's fantastic because I think your show and Mo's, which of course that's where I first met you, was on Mo's show, and we did a couple great episodes together there. And you were like the first podcasters, and like the first like idea that I could that podcasting can be a thing. And then I think it was when you guys started the Mixler night.
Yes.
I think it was like and invited me to start a podcast. That's how I started mine, but it never really crossed my mind that podcasting is like a thing that could be accompanying the blog. So I mean, that was like one of the things I always like listened to yours and Mo's to start with. And I think the other one was the No Budget Nightmares that Mo was doing with Doug, and those were kind of like the early ones. And so it is kind of cool that it's like now we're 10 years later. And no,
I mean my whole thing was. I don't know when we got into the Mixler thing. It's about halfway through my run. I think it's about 5-6 years ago. It was just before, probably a bit longer actually, 6-7 years ago, just before I met Kim, because I was still living up in the Bronx when we were doing that. And that was really I just said to the guys, it was, I forget the name of the people who were running the night, and it became a whole controversy, but with them and numbers and whatever, and Mo and I kind of jumped ship from them. But yeah, we moved into doing that, and I just kind of said to those guys, like, just cherry pick whatever old episodes of mine you want and just play them that night. But I wouldn't mind doing this live show, this crosstalk thing, and maybe guesting on Mo's show and some other stuff. So I never did the After Movie Diner like live those nights, although they ran an episode. I used to do crosstalk, and then I would come on and do. It started off as Drunk on VHS, but then it became like Sex Shop Confidential.
Right.
And we just talked about all his random sex shop stuff, which was funny. And then I did some shows with Jamie Jenkins, and we did some music shows and things like that. And it's funny, there was a small group of people who really, really loved that. And kind of that, even though it was a very small group, it was sort of 7 or 8 people in the chat during crosstalk or whatever, and those people sort of added on to the community I'd already started building with the regular episodes. And then I came off the back of Profondo Cinema, and what I really liked was Profondo Cinema was like 2 friends talking, and it never felt like they did anything for anyone else. It was what they wanted to talk about, how they wanted to talk about it, how they wanted to edit it, whatever they wanted to do. And that's what drew me to doing it. And then I created my show off the back of my blog, because I was just doing like a little diary blog. I just had literally a Google Blogger account back in the day, and was just writing out like, I saw this movie today and this is what I felt about it, before Letterboxd. Once Letterboxd came along, I'm like, why do you need a movie blog, right? In that regard, because you can just do it on Letterboxd. Because it wasn't a curated thing like yours. Mine was just this date I watched this thing, nobody cares, goodbye. Which I can do on Letterboxd now, and the same amount of people don't care. But the show, because I'd done so much radio stuff before and audio stuff and comedy sketches and music, it was like perfect for me, because I was just like, oh, this is great. I get to talk to friends, make more friends, because as listeners became friends on social media, then they became potential guests. In the same way that happened on Profondo. Like, I was a fan first, and then they had me on to do a Stallone episode, and then it kind of built from there, and we're still pals now. And so I wanted that. I always wanted just a kind of community from the show. And again, this sort of victory lap is a way to kind of honor that community. It was great doing the show with Jim, but the After Movie Diner was always kind of more than that. And it's nice to be able to honor that community of people I've met along the way and have inspired me or made me better or maybe worse. I don't know. Either way. So before we start talking about critters, why don't you plug your books? Well, both your books, but you published your second novel this year. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, so the second novel is called A Girl and a Gun, which I discovered was not a good title to have on Amazon because there are tons of like bad action movie 10 DVD sets called The Girl and a Gun or whatever. So. It's something that I'd started I think in 2018, and just kind of working my way through it. It's about this guy Justin he's born in like 81, but it's like kind of starts in like the late 2000s where he's just become a successful writer, and he's kind of sort of growing into this thing where he has a friend and they're working on a TV show idea based off like an old comic book, and they're kind of developing it. And what happens is, earlier, before his book was published in like kind of the mid 2000s, this girl from college that they both moved to Boston after they went to the University of Maine. She was trying to be like a dancer, cheerleader, that kind of thing. And I had initially come up with this idea that she would have a brothel, and that's how she was going to make money to pay for her stuff. And then I thought like brothels is kind of overdone, so I came up with this idea that she creates like a fetish porn site, and like because she kind of hears that some of the girls that she cheerleads with, like it's some like these like lower tier professional sports teams, that's what they do to make extra money, and she decides, well, I could just create my own company. And so this character Justin gets involved with that, and of course the scandal breaks and his whole career kind of falls apart. And then we kind of get into the second half of the book where he's rebuilding his career, and he starts to rebuild it, and he's kind of starting to get kind of full of himself, and he meets this woman who's like a famous starlet who's like in rom-coms and whatnot, who he writes a script that gets this former teen star who's had drug issues. He kind of gets her career rehabilitated with this movie that he adapts the script for, and this rom-com actress wants him to do the same thing for her. And ends up the movie he creates is A Girl and a Gun, and ends up being a disaster for him because she's just so horrible and insufferable that she just takes a physical toll on him the whole time. But yet there's this hubris where he has a thing for her even though he's seeing somebody else, and all of that. Originally, I'd written a script for the movie. I'd actually written the script for the movie, and that was originally going to be in the novel, and then the formatting just didn't look good, and I just scrapped it and just said, maybe I'll release it at some point. But yeah, so that's the new one that's out now, and so yeah, it's on Amazon, Kindle, paperback, and all of that. And then the previous one was Chad and Accounting. That was more of a labor of love. That was kind of, in a way, it's like my second novel because I'd written one in the early 2000s that I'm still kind of fixing, or just kind of I had kind of put aside. But this other one, Chad and Accounting, started in 2009, and I think I kind of wrote it up until about 2014, and then let it sit, didn't really touch it, and then kind of came back to it. And then last year, right when we're kind of in the pandemic period, I'm going through it, just reading through it again, and realize like it's ready, like it's as edited as it's going to be. Why don't I just put it on Amazon and just self-publish it? And and so I kind of write like roughly. I try to write the rough draft of a novel each year, with the idea in mind that. So like next year, this one that I wrote in 2019 should be ready to go next year, and kind of have that sort of system in place where I'm constantly proofreading things and going through them. So that's the hope, is to get a novel out every year.
And are they doing all right? Have they done okay? Are we?
Yeah, this one's not doing as well as the previous one was, and I think part of the thing for that is like, for the most part, they're selling through family and friends. That's for the most part who's buying them. I try to get on Twitter and try to sell them through other places, but for the most part, that's who's buying them. And I think the novelty kind of wore off for a lot of family and friends. When I wrote a second one, it was like, oh wow, Matt, our friend, family member that wrote a novel, we've got to buy it, we got to get this. And then it's like, oh, he wrote another one. Oh, okay, he's just going to keep doing this. So it's just going to keep being these novels.
Well, that's the thing, is that the trouble is having done sales years ago for my sins, you unfortunately learn that for every 100 phone calls, you might make one sale, right? So, and the same rings true, sadly, for like social media, it seems. And while I have the best friends and the best family, and certainly they have supported like my music and have supported the podcast, it's always the people you don't expect. It's always the stranger or whatever who will buy your whole catalog and respond to you with some really nice messages about the songs or whatever it is. So it's an interesting thing that for whatever reason, even though you're saying to your friends and family, like, this is literally just the cost of, you know, a movie rental, or it's the cost of a coffee and a donut, or it's the cost of, you know, a plate of McDonald's or whatever. I mean, you name your reasonably priced thing, it's the same thing. It's rare that friends and family come out over and over again for support, and I don't know why that is, because I will for them time and time again. I don't know why it isn't the other way around. And you know, Matt and Charlie, who in New England, who do all the Freaky Farley, Monsters, Marriage, Murder, and Manch Vegas, did Heard She Got Married this year, and are about to release Metal Detector Maniac this year, who I covered on the 10th anniversary. You know, Charlie always says this really interesting thing. He's like, if you make a scarf, right, or carve something in wood or whatever and put it up on Etsy, right, for like $28 or whatever, people within that community, strangers or friends and family, but mostly strangers, will kind of go, that scarf you made, or that wood carving, or that picture you painted, or whatever, that's worth 28 of my freshly minted dollars. You know what I mean? If you go, here's an album, or here's a movie, or here's a book, or here's something creative, for whatever reason, people don't go, that's worth 28 of my dollars. And we're not even asking $28. Right. Like Matt's last movie, he sold for $12 on Vimeo. I sell my albums for like $6, $7. I don't even think I have an album out there that's for $9. And most of my albums have like 16 songs on them. So there's bound to be one that you'd like.
Right.
I hope. I'm throwing enough mud at the wall, right? So, yeah, it's a weird thing. And I don't know how you change that mindset. And considering that the way the internet is, I don't know that we ever do. But I can strongly urge everyone listening to go find your books, Chad and Accounting, and A Girl and a Gun, or The Girl and the Gun?
No, A Girl and a Gun. Yeah, it's kind of like, it's like that Jean-Luc Godard comment, you know, all you need to make a movie is a girl and a gun. Yes. And so that's kind of what he does in the movie, is he's talking to this rom-com starlet who's like, you know, the daughter of like, you know, big Hollywood movie shakers, and he essentially says to her when they're out to lunch, and he's, you know, she's trying to get him to do this, he's like, you know, yeah, Godard said all you need is, you know, is a girl and a gun. And he's like, I guess, you know, because he's thinking, you know, sex and violence styles. But really, too, you know, the gun gives the girl agency. And he's like, well, you know, always have agency. You know, you can get into whatever clubs you want. You know, you've never been able to not get what you want in life. And that's when he starts to create this other character who is someone who can't get whatever she wants in life. And then suddenly she has a gun, and, you know, the tables turn. So that's where the title came from. And I probably wonder if maybe I should have given it a different title, like just because it is something that kind of just melds in. It just, you know, I mean, the other problem for me too is I've been trying to do this on the cheap. Like, I don't really have the money to invest. It's kind of more of a hobby. It's almost like the person that fixes up cars, you know. So I haven't been able to like make like real nice cover art. I just kind of, you know, just keep it nice and, you know, one color with the title on there. I imagine if I probably had something cuter on the cover, like, it would probably bring more people in who just see it on Twitter. But I also
like the idea of that being a collection. So with each novel you release, I like the idea of, you know, 10 years from now looking at my bookshelf and having 10 of your books on there. You know what I mean? And them all being... Because this one's a slight navy blue. Right. The one before was like a black, so I like the idea of maybe the next one you do is kind of a brownie or a
I was thinking green. I had green, like a dark green in mind. Yeah. So
keep up with that, because I like the idea of the uniformity. Also, there's all those hipsters out there who love to arrange their books by color because it makes no sense, but it looks pretty on Instagram, I guess. So they're all like, I put all my red books together, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Where's Dracula? Or where's, Sense and Sensibility? And they're like, I don't know. What color is the cover? I don't know what color is the cover because I don't know what publication you have of Sense and Sensibility. Or I don't know why I went to old literature, but I mean, it could equally be John Grisham or, Clive Cussler or someone. Like, I don't know. Why am I picking out... like, now I've just gone the other way to, like, the kind of crap my dad reads. But you know what I mean? It's like saying, oh, pick out Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Well, is that a blue cover or a green cover? Who the fuck knows? Right. So you could get some hipsters. That's what you want. You want, like, that hipster trend of... Hey, look, don't worry about what's in the book, but the cover is a blue. Do you need that extra blue for your bookshelf so it can look good on Instagram for however many of the thousands of followers you have? That's really what you want to do. Sell it like you sell painkillers.
I never thought about that, but actually, yeah. If I put out more, if I put out a bunch, then they could have like this whole collection of different colors, and it would. Because I read about this that like a lot of the direct to buyer market, they really just sell crap, but they make it with like this nice like font and these nice muted colors, and hipsters just buy the crap out of it.
They just love them. They just love them. They're all about it. Yeah,
right, exactly.
But that's the people you need to be selling to, dude. The people with disposable income who want colored books and don't ever want to have to read it. They just want to look like they've read it. That's really where.
And I'm
and you're okay with that.
Yes, yes, it's nice to like get reviews or whatever. But I think I'm okay with people. It's fun like, when people read it and they come back and say, yeah, where did you come up with that idea from, or where did you, where did this thing, or what, like I do like that kind of thing. It's kind of cool to kind of geek out and say like, oh yeah, this is where I came up with this, and my former boss, she's actually one person who's supported, like she's got, but see, I think she does it the smart way. She just gets it on Kindle, which I think for a lot of people out there, I think they think like, well, it's, he's my friend, I've got to get the paperback, which I appreciate people getting the paperback. I think it's really good, but you don't have to, like the Kindle. Right. I
don't have a Kindle, so I just buy the paperback.
You got to do the right, exactly. And I think that's the other thing too. I think most of my friends don't have a Kindle. I mean, I technically have the Kindle app on my phone. Every once in a while, I'll get a book on there on Kindle, just because I'm got too many books at some point. I've got to do something with them, but yeah, I remember she wanted to talk to me about my first book, and then what ended up happening was our company split our product into two, and she left with the other product, and so I haven't had a chance to find out. But she was like very curious about some things that I came up with in the first novel. She was like, I want to know where you came up with some of this stuff.
Yeah, did you borrow this heavily from work? And when Chad in accounting, is that really Brian in accounting? Are you really talking about Brian? Well, I will put the links, as always, in the episode description. So if people are still listening at this point, then they will get the knowledge of what the book's all about, and hopefully they'll be rushing to Amazon to support you, because I strongly do urge people, as I always do and as we talked about before, that supporting indie artists and supporting indie creatives, it really is genuinely the best thing, because not only do you feel good doing it, not only does it not cost a lot of money, but lastly, that that your purchase is not only financially supporting an individual, but also making them emotionally better, mentally better, whatever. And that will then ripple out to their friends and family and whatever. So, I strongly believe, be the change you want to see in the world. And the change I want to see in the world is people moving away. We now have the apparatus in place so that no one needs to be consuming giant corporate art for thousands of dollars. They just don't. It doesn't need to happen anymore. I'm glad, like Spotify did it right. It's one streaming service. They pay everyone more or less the same thing. The famous people get paid a bit more because they have a built-in audience. So the moment you hit like 1,000 listens, and then 20,000 listens, and then 100,000, and 500,000, and million listens, or whatever, your percentage of each play goes up, right? So if you're Madonna and you immediately come onto Spotify and immediately have tens of millions of listens, you're already making more money per listen than I do. You're still going to go on the media and complain about it because you just love the attention, and you're someone who's been making money off the same 10 songs for the last 30 years. But you're going to complain about it, but you are making more per listen than I am, right? But it's a democracy. Like essentially, it's democratized everything. I'm on the same platform as Paul McCartney. I don't get anywhere near the same listens, but every single listen I get makes me feel like Elvis Presley, right? So that to me is fantastic. Visual streaming, we've still got a long way to go because everyone just keeps releasing new streaming channels and people think they have to subscribe to them. And the joy of what we used to have, which was like Netflix and Hulu, and they had basically everything on it because everyone invested in those two platforms. In fact, Hulu, I think, was created by like 3 of the major networks. I think it was Fox and NBC and Disney, I think, did Hulu, I think. ABC, Hulu. That used to be brilliant because you were like, I have to have 2 things and I can cut my cord and then whatever. Now somehow the 4 networks, because we just had this because we just moving here, we lost our cable subscription because we didn't want to keep paying for it here at this new place. I can't even get the 4 networks for free. Okay. Even on this, they have streaming apps. I just can't even get the live TV for free. I'm not even asking for the back catalog stuff. I just mean like the live TV. The stuff that we literally as taxpayers allow them to use our airwaves, right? And yet and they're meant to be free. They're meant to be available to every household. And you have 2 options now. One is hang a co-hanger out the window and hopefully pick them up, or pay for cable in order to get the streaming apps. And I'm like, no, no. Because especially the way Disney's done it, like you have Disney Plus and you have Hulu and you have ESPN or whatever, right? But not one of those really covers the live shows. You can get Hulu Live, but then that's basically getting cable. It's $65.99 or whatever it is a month on top of all the streaming services you have. Why the fuck would you do that? So I have a beef there. And I also have a beef with shit like Black Widow going up on Disney Plus for $29.99 to just watch it, to rent it, not even to own it. Right. I'm already paying my $7.99 nut to Disney Plus every month, but then I've got to rent your movie at theater prices at home, like more than theater prices actually, and I don't even get to own it. So I'm like, fuck these people. I'm not doing that anymore. Fuck you. I will buy physical media and watch it on my projector at home. And then, I have the odd streaming service for like certain things, horror movies or whatever that I don't own yet, or Prime because it comes as part of my Amazon thing anyway. But outside of that, like, I'm not going to play the game anymore. So it's harder to get people to like support indie film and support indie music. Even though it's really easy and the infrastructure is there now. Same with self-publishing. So I do encourage people to do it. It, as I say, your money goes to an individual with a family and friends and a life and rent and healthcare bills and whatever. It doesn't go into someone's pocket to just pay for more yachts or, cock-shaped rockets or whatever.
Yeah, I have to say, you were someone who kind of taught me about, especially from the music side of it. I didn't really know anything about Bandcamp. I'd heard of it, but I didn't really understand how it worked compared to like, and I think when Heart Can Be a Shambles first came out, I think that was when I first learned about it, because I think I was like, I could try to listen to it. I've got the iHeartRadio app I could try. And I realized, like, no, you can't just stream with the iHeart. It's like you play one song and then it starts playing songs by other people, and it's hard to even just listen to an album. And I think
Spotify you can listen to the whole album on Spotify. Yeah. And Bandcamp now has a streaming app if you want to like stream the album, but it's not like Spotify would stream my whole album and then be like move you to a radio that would have similar type music in it and would essentially keep playing music all day. Bandcamp doesn't do that. You can stream my album on Bandcamp. I don't make any money off the streams, though. That's the difference. Right. I make money off the streams on Spotify. Bandcamp is set up so that you can listen to it because I have all my stuff open anyway. But the only way I make any money on Bandcamp is if you buy the album or the individual track. You can set up albums on Bandcamp like the old iTunes, where you give listeners 1 or 2 tracks or 30 seconds of a track, and then they have to buy the album or buy the track. I haven't bothered to do that. All my stuff's open and available, but if you want to stream it, do it on any other platform if you want to buy it on Bandcamp. That's kind of how I lay it out.
Yeah.
Because even iHeartRadio and Pandora and what's the other one? Deezer and Spotify and Amazon and iTunes. I'm on all those. I get paid a 0.0 cent or whatever every time you play a song on any of those platforms, even if you can also buy it. Like iTunes, you can buy the album, but if you stream the album on Apple Music, I make money in the same way that I do with Spotify. But Bandcamp is Bandcamp is like the record shop of our youth, right? So you go in and you can peruse genres, you can peruse certain artists, you can see if someone bought this album, you can see what else they bought, because maybe if you like that album, you can see what they kind of bought and stuff. So it has some of those rabbit holes you can go down if you want to kind of build a record collection in there. And then you can either download them or you can keep them in your collection and stream them as you like once you've purchased them. But I love Bandcamp. I think Bandcamp's fantastic. And what they did with the no-fee Fridays, the Bandcamp Fridays, on one hand, you go, oh, well, it's fantastic that they're waiving their fees. But to be honest, their fees were like 8% or whatever. It was not a lot. The best thing about Bandcamp Fridays, it's a built-in marketing day.
Yeah.
It's a built-in day that you gear towards. You can promote, instead of promoting the album, you're promoting the whole idea of like, hey, I get a little bit more money if you buy the album today. But so really you're promoting the album, but you're not. You're kind of promoting the fact that Bandcamp's waiving their fees. But by extension, what you're saying is buy my album without having to kind of say buy my album. So it's just a really nice, it's like a built-in marketing day. There's Twitter chains around it. There's, Facebook hashtags and stuff. So it just builds, it's less about, the fact that I get $1 more when you buy my album or 50 cents more when you buy my album, because I don't have them priced high enough for that 8% to really matter. But every little helps, and it's a built-in marketing day, and I've had more success doing what I'm doing with Bandcamp Fridays than I was before, where I was just every so often kind of saying like, hey, I have music over here, and nobody gave a shit. So, I think it's fantastic, but and the more services do that and the more people learn. I think that's the other thing is I think because we live in it, you do a blog and a podcast, I do a podcast and a website, and, we have friends who do music and friends who do books and friends whatever. We're in all these platforms all the time, and I think I take for granted a little bit that someone understands when I say like, hey, my album's on Spotify, that they know what that means, right? And maybe I need, so this is a great example of this. My band got played on a obscure radio station in Wales, right, which is the tiny country that's on the edge of England, right, which is also a tiny country. So it's an even tinier country than England, which is a tiny country. And it was like this little radio station, local radio station. And they played our song because our trumpeter, Johnny Cole, and our sometimes mixer, producer, bassist, Greg Singh, are both from Wales. They both grew up a couple of towns over from each other. They didn't know each other until they were in my band, funnily enough, and I know them from two completely different walks of life, but they grew up really close to each other. And there is this radio station that plays local and Welsh-related indie bands. That's what they do for an hour on a Sunday. And Johnny sent our music off because he knew a guy who knew a guy who knew a guy, sent our music off. And for one evening, I think they ended up playing us all week. We ended up becoming the like artist of the week or whatever, which was super cool. It was very, very cool. But we were playing on the radio, right? So, and it's a radio station you can either find on your dial in the old traditional way, or you can go to their website and they stream. Like I listened to it in Connecticut, and it's Wales, in the UK. So, and they just stream it on their website, just using a little thing. My dad did that. Like, he listened to my music on the radio and was like, oh my God, my boy's on the radio. This is the most amazing thing ever. Like, he was blown away by the fact that I was on the radio, even though it made me no money,
right,
got me no more fans, and I had nothing to do with it happening. And I don't know what listenership they have, but, I can't imagine it's a lot, right? But very flattering and awesome, and I loved it and fantastic. And my dad listened to it. And I've said to my dad, I don't know how many times, this is how you buy the album. Like, I've taken him to Bandcamp. I've shown him he can enter his credit card details. Exactly. And he's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll do that. Never done it, and never done it. Never been able to figure it out. Put myself on an obscure radio station in Wales. Oh, he's got that figured out. Like, he knows how to dial into that. So different strokes, right, for different folks. So that's just an example whereby you're like, I assume everyone at this point knows what Spotify, Amazon, iTunes are. A lot of people don't, I guess. And it's not just my dad. It's I'm sure it's lots of people.
Yeah.
So,
I'd heard of Bandcamp before, but I didn't really get what it was. I didn't understand it as a concept until you were, when you were publicizing, the Bandcamp Fridays. I think it was even before that. I think it was before the Bandcamp Fridays. I think you mentioned that, Heart Could Be a Shambles was on there. And I was like, oh, this is actually a real easy way to just, and I think then when you kind of, when you're kind of, putting it out there more that people should be supporting indie artists, it was like, yeah, well, I mean, Bandcamp is like the easiest one, I think, out of any. It's just you get the app and you go on the website, buy the song, and it's right there on your app, and you can listen to it. You can go for a walk and listen to it. It's but it's like such an easy way to support an artist because, like with Spotify, the amount of streams you would have to do on Spotify to equal what one Bandcamp purchase is immense, and so yes, I think people get support from being listened to on Spotify, but it's not the same as just going to Bandcamp one time and just making that purchase.
No, exactly, and it takes me a year of streaming to make up what I make on one Bandcamp Friday.
Yeah.
And I have another really cool thing. My friend Scott Toomey, who's up in Mass, he does a synthwave show every Friday night on Twitch. I realized that like 7 years ago, if I'd said that sentence, you and Mo would just take the piss out of me. Oh, a synthwave show on Twitch. But all the Kill kids are doing it now, man. But you know what I mean? A synthwave show on Twitch. And when I go on, I often I text along in the chat while I'm listening to his DJ set and stuff. And it's introduced me to a whole new music. I mean, I like synthwave because I like those movies that have it as a soundtrack, but I'd never gone out of my way to kind of like really absorb a whole album of that stuff. And what was great is every 4 weeks of him doing this, we'd hit a Bandcamp Friday. So I would literally say in the chat, like if he played a track and the guy was in the chat, because sometimes he plays the music of the people who were there that night, I'd be like, hey, hit me up with your Bandcamp link. I'll buy your album on Bandcamp Friday. So I just started, like every Friday of the Synthwave show, I would set aside, $60 or whatever and be like, I'm going to buy 5 albums tonight at Scott's show. And whenever he played like 5 tracks I really liked, I'd be like, hey, hit me up with your Bandcamp link. I'd grab the link, I'd buy the album. And I did that through most of 2020 and 21 when Scott was doing that. And I did that with my friend Holly, who does a live show from her gallery on Saturday nights. And other times where people, it's really good if you find a community that is all sharing all their stuff. So on Twitter in the last 6 to 8 months, I've become a part of Miscellaneous Plumbing Fixtures, have become a part of this online community. And all we kind of say that we'll do for each other is kind of like and retweet and share and comment and kind of keep interest going whenever any of us tweet. It's just really kind of, it just beats the algorithm a little bit and kind of floats your stuff to the top. That community has led to me getting songs on playlists on Spotify that I never had before. It gets my songs getting 1,000 plays, which is like the sweet spot on Spotify to kind of start. Once you hit 1,000, Spotify starts showing listeners that this song is over 1,000. Until then, it's just 1,000 with an arrow saying you haven't done that yet, which then puts it into more of the Spotify playlists. So Spotify generate playlists for everyone every day around the entire world. So if your song has the same kind of vibe as another song, they'll slip it into their Discover Weekly or their new release radar or one of their algorithm built playlists. and then that boosts the listens of your songs, and so on and so forth. So once you start getting into these communities, this is where I got the whole kind of just support each other all the time thing. Once you get into these communities, just the act of support, just the act of retweeting, just the act of liking, just the act of commenting has a ripple effect, has a quantifiable ripple effect. And it can't just be like 5 of us out there retweeting everyone. It needs to be like needs to be hundreds of people doing it. It's funny, I remember saying, and I'm sure I've told you this before, but like putting a post out on Facebook about this very subject, and one of my friends from England like, right, but like, you don't need me to like all your stuff. You know I like your stuff. And I'm like, I don't need you to do it for me. I need you to do it for the art and so that other people discover it. Because guess what? You have 700 friends and I have 700 friends, but we only intersect at 100 friends.
Right.
There are 600 friends on my side and 600 friends on your side that our friends don't know. So you have to do that to give... And I tried to explain it, and he was like, yeah, but I can't be doing that with everybody. And I'm like, does everybody you know create music or film or whatever? And he's like, no. And I'm like, right, so why would you be doing it with everybody? And I've even had people say this whole thing, like, I'm trying to curate my timeline.
Right,
I don't want to bombard my timeline. I'm like, no one cares about your timeline, dude. No one is going to your profile and scrolling through everything that you have carefully curated. They're just seeing the conglomerate of everyone's timelines in their news feed. That's all anyone's looking at. But you can't tell people, dude. I can't tell people enough. I can't shout about it enough. So anyway, everyone listening to the podcast, go buy Matt's books. And if you don't, I'll know about it, and then I'll find you, and I'll take a shit in your car or something.
I appreciate that.
And what's worse, Matt? Is it worse that I take a shit in their car, or mysteriously in the middle of the night take a shit on their car? So when they come out, they're kind of like, did someone take a shit on my car? Like, what's worse? Or is it worse to open the car door and be like, someone shit in my car? Like, I don't know what's more mysterious and weird.
Because I think it's a lot easier to deal with on the car than in the car.
Yes.
Right, because you've got like upholstery, you've got things that need to be scrubbed in it. Whereas like on the car, I mean, you don't even necessarily need to touch it if you just like get a hose and spray it, and you can't.
So in the car, you're saying in the car just for maximum effect.
I think right, yeah.
Maybe pry off an air vent,
right.
Shit in the AC, and then close up the air vent again so they never find it.
Right. Every time they turn the AC on, it's like, what is that smell? Like, what is...
Yeah. So that's the plan. So if you don't buy Matt's books, that's what I'm going to do. And I know where all of you live because I know all of my listeners individually at this point. And also, so we're going to take a mid-show break at this point before we start talking about the movie. And it's a perfect time to remind you that if you want to reach out to us, you can do so on Twitter, Facebook, wherever the words After Movie and Diner appear. You can email us at hello@aftermoviediner.com. That's hello@aftermoviediner.com. You can call us and leave a voicemail at 347-669-0053, 347-669-0053. And you can go to speakpipe.com/aftermoviediner. Leave a voicemail right directly on your computer if you want to. If you don't have a cell phone, or if you don't want to use your cell phone minutes, if that's still a thing in the world of cell phones, I don't know. I've had unlimited ever since I've had a cell phone, so I don't know. But if you don't want to use your minutes, you can go right on SpeakPipe and do it there. And as always, if you want to support the show, even to the tune of like $1 per show, then you have multiple options. You can donate right on the website. You can hit the coffee button, buy me a coffee button on the website, or you can go over to Patreon, patreon.com/After Movie Diner, and become a subscriber to the After Movie Diner. And I put out maybe 1 or 2 episodes a month, so you're not even like, it's a couple of bucks a month. Do it. All right. So now we'll move into the second part of the show where we are talking about Critters. Cue commercial. And then, sir, tell us, when did you first come across Critters?
So I thought I had seen it before. I don't know if I have, to be honest, but it's possible that I did. The movie came out in the late 80s. I knew of this one as kind of being like sort of your your standard, like your video store mainstay. It's like you walk through the horror section and there's Critters. I don't necessarily remember it coming out in the theater, and I think part of that is because I was young enough at that time that I was, at that time you wouldn't see a horror movie commercial when you're watching He-Man or something like that. So I probably didn't, watch anything that would have advertised it, but I remember it being in the video store, and I felt like I had seen it. Like the stuff that was happening towards the end of the movie, I remembered a little bit better. So it's possible it's one of those things where you just walk in on somebody watching it, and you're like, oh, let's sit and watch Critters. But seeing it now was a fun experience to kind of go back and see whether I'd seen it or not to see it again.
Yeah, and for me, it was one of those definitely video store mainstays. It was definitely one of those that, as I got older, I rented. Initially, I had always thought of it more as, Gremlins came out, and then Critters came out, and then Puppet Master came out, and then Dolls came out, and then it was just little things attacking people, right? Maybe Piranha started it. Let's blame Joe Dante, and then Gremlins, and then, but it was whatever it was, whether it was aliens or bugs or creatures or monsters or whatever. The idea was the smaller. But the more of them, right, coming at you, and along the time we also had obviously stuff like E.T. and Mac and Me, and a couple of those like Visitors from Flight of the Navigator, things like that, where those sort of films were in the zeitgeist, as it were, in the 80s, kind of a little subgenre off to their own of kind of alien invasion movies, but not as we knew them in the 50s and not as we would know them then in the 90s when stuff like Independence Day came out, but sort of small, localized alien invasion kind of thing, right? And Critters was, and then you have even other like Munchies and Hobgoblins and Ghoulies was, of course, another one, right? So the three big ones was Gremlins, Critters, and Ghoulies. They were kind of the ones I remember from the video store. And I would probably put them in that order as well, like of prestige, if that's even a word to use about any of these movies. But Gremlins, Critters, and Ghoulies kind of in that order.
Yeah.
And I must have watched, it's not a every October kind of watch for me, but it's probably every 5th October, I'll be like, sure, I'll give Critters a play. There are some that I watch every year. I normally watch at least a Friday the 13th, a Halloween, one of the Halloweens. I tend to I'll put in like a Fright Night or something like that. The Evil Dead. Some of these are like ones that I'll watch pretty much every year. I'll normally do a John Carpenter, either Prince of Darkness or The Thing or The Fog or one of those. And that sort of becomes my regular rotation. And then sort of every 4, 5, 6 years, I'll kind of throw in a Critters or, one of these other ones. And it was certainly one of those that I never really kind of considered. It was just like, oh, it's a fun 90-minute, romp with these little furry things coming around and whatever. And that's it. This time when I watched it, and I don't know if it's just some sort of a cumulative effect or whether I'm just getting older and I don't see movies this fun anymore. I had a ball with this movie this time round. Like it suddenly shot to the top of my list of like, this is hilarious. Like, first of all, the movie's hilarious. Like, I just found it hilarious all the way through. But also I noticed some like weird little things throughout, which I want to get into. But did you have a similar experience? Like, did you really enjoy it this time round, or?
Oh yes, yeah. I mean, I think my feeling, because I never really considered it as like one of those like watch it every Halloween either, but it was like one of those things where like Critters was just sort of this thing I took for granted. Like, yes, Critters exists and I could watch it if I want to, but and
Leonardo DiCaprio is in the 4th one. Is he in the 4th one or the 3rd one? He's in one of them. Anyway.
Yeah, that's a good point.
He is in one of them. Yeah.
Yeah, which is fantastic that he probably wants to erase that from history, but he would like George Lucas to go in and remove him from it probably if he could do that. Create a version of it has Hayden Christensen in it instead or something like that.
Okay, that's the funniest. Yeah, he's in 3. He's in Critters 3. Right. I like the idea of famous people who were in shitty horror movies like Jennifer Aniston in Leprechaun or Brad Pitt in Cutting Class or whatever. Them now going to George Lucas and saying, buy these movies and digitally alter me to be Hayden Christensen. So suddenly Hayden Christensen is in like 5 more movies, but he fucks up like all our favorite horror films.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like he takes, because I'm sure Critters 3, and I've got to watch that. There's like having so enjoyed the first one again, I've got to go back. I years ago, because I bought it on DVD years ago, I watched all 4 back to back, but I haven't done that in a long time. So I'm going to go and do that this year. But I'm sure there's a lot of enjoyability in Critters 3, and but Hayden Christensen would just ruin it. Like it would just, and Lucas would probably stick a bunch of like, I don't know, self-referential droids in the background or something. But that is a hilarious concept. The idea of famous people now, millionaires going, like George Clooney being like, can you take me out of Return to Horror High and Return of the Killer Tomatoes and put Hayden Christensen in there instead? That's fantastic. Yeah.
Well, because you think, I remember when George Lucas.
Well, because Hayden Christensen's not working. So.
No, right. And Lucas seemed to love him so much that he was putting him in everything. And when he was he's like, well, like when he remade Return of the Jedi, I couldn't believe when I see the end, and it's like, that's not the guy who was playing. Darth Vader. That's and so, yeah. I remember when he first did that, Kevin Smith kind of made some flip comment because there was the outrage of what Lucas was doing. He's like, it's not like he's replacing Humphrey Bogart with Steve Guttenberg in Casablanca,
right?
But
although I would watch that film,
I mean, that would be kind of a fun deal. This kind of, I think, hurt our sensibilities more. What he was doing with the Star Wars films, I think. But yeah, the idea
because it goes against everything that whenever I talk about reboots or remakes or reimaginings or 15 different director's cuts like there is for Blade Runner or whatever, people always say the same shit to me. They're always like, well, you have the original. No one's taking the original off your shelf and killing the original. And I always say to them, that's great. Except in the case of Star Wars, because if you want to buy the Star Wars that you remember when you were growing up, you have to buy them on VHS for about $800 a tape, or probably even more at this point. So there is a problem with Lucas going back and fucking with the old Star Wars, because we don't have the original Star Wars for him not to have fucked with. If he released the originals as they were, the theatrical releases, he could then fuck with, like, it's like... Apocalypse Now, right?
Right.
Every time they put out a new disc of Apocalypse Now, the 4 disc, the 5 disc, the Blu-ray, the 4X UD, whatever. Right. And I have all of them because it's my favorite movie of all time. The theatrical version is always on there. It's always on there. Even when he released Redo and he released the director's cut and various other things, the theatrical version is always on there. So you've always got whatever it was that made you fall in love with the movie in the first place. The only person who hasn't done that is Lucas. Yeah. So I would take umbrage with that. Anyway, carry on. Sorry.
No, but I think there was that idea with Critters that it was this thing, right? That you could just, and I think when you brought it up watching it, I was like, this is this thing that I just sort of like left for 25 years now at this point is what it would be. I think the film came out in 86, I think it was. So I don't remember when I saw it. If I've seen it, that's the other thing too. I don't remember.
So it's its 35th anniversary.
35th. I'm thinking 25. Yeah, I keep forgetting to carry the 2 with the.
And also the fact that I'm that old. I always forget that I'm that old. Yeah, 35. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think because you think about it for the entire 90s, I would say. When I looked up the movie online, I realized how well it did in the box office. It actually makes sense that it was so prominently displayed in every horror section of every video store, because every old codger that owned a video store at that time was like, oh, we got to get this Critters movie out here next to Gremlins, and so that was how they sold it. So I get that part of it. I think I understood a lot of that, which I appreciated. And I think seeing it now, I kind of had a better appreciation for all of that. I think it's one thing to watch that movie in the 90s and kind of have fun with it as a fun 80s movie at that time. But yeah, I think you're right. To see it now, and see, I think there are a lot of things that we take for granted with horror now that those 80s movies did in a different way, that they got a different kind of a different kind of horror movie could be a big budget, big screen film. I wouldn't know if I'd call this big budget, but it could be a big screen film back then. I don't think you could make a Critters now and have it be anything but direct to video.
Right.
It would no major motion picture house would put it on a big screen, and I don't even think like a Netflix or somebody like that would want it. It would probably be like direct to video or something.
I think they didn't they do a recent one? No, they did Critters Attack in 2019.
That's right.
I don't know. So you get the first original 4, which is what I would consider the original franchise, and then Critters Attack. There was also one, Critters A New Binge, which was a TV series.
Right.
That served as a reboot. The series shows the creatures pursued by intergalactic bounty hunters returning on Earth's secret mission. Trailer was released on February 28, 2019, and the series premiered on Shudder. So there is a Shudder series. That's why that's in my head. And apparently, D. Wallace Stone came back for Critters Attack. So that might actually be worth watching. And in Critters 4, so talk about before they were famous, or maybe they were already famous at this point, you have Angela Bassett and Brad Dourif in Critters 4. You, of course, have Billy Zane in Critters 1.
Yes.
Here's our before they were famous. And then you have established actors such as D. Wallace Stone, M. Emmett Walsh, and Billy Greenbush, who, of course, has been in a bunch of stuff as well, that make up the main part of the Critters 1. And maybe as we go through the franchise, or I go through the franchise or whatever, maybe we talk more about it in the future because, as I say, I watched all 4 back in the day, and then I watched all 4 again about probably 10 years ago. But the one that I watched frequently is Critters 1. But I never had such a good time with it as I had this time around. And I think much like Gremlins, it's the benefit of it being in video stores, and the reason why we were aware of it probably before we were aware of maybe some of the other more extreme horrors, is that it is a PG-13 horror. I mean, there is some gore in it, but there's also some green goo and harmless stuff in it to some extent. So like Gremlins, which has some moments of like death and mayhem in it, but nothing that would so worry a teenager. You know what I mean? They're more teen-friendly horrors, and so there's also that idea that maybe like, oh wow, you watched Critters when you were a teenager, but like why go back and watch it as an adult?
Right.
And I think that the reason why you go back and watch it as an adult is it's very, very funny. I really, really like it. For people who don't know, the movie starts and they're in a spaceship, and the critters have escaped with their own spaceship, and some intergalactic. Well, he looks like a creature that Lucas would have invented for Star Wars, the Star Wars cantina, but then mixed with, who's mated with the beast out of Basket Case.
Right, that's what I was thinking, the Basket Case, right?
Basket Case, Belial or whatever it is, out of Basket Case. So he looks like a combination between a crappy George Lucas throwaway cantina goblin and Belial from Basket Case, wheeling himself around on what looks like one of those wheelie tables that people buy in cheap apartments to put their computers on in the corner of the living room, like he's wheeling around on one of those things. And I said that it was wonderfully inventive, but also that most of the alien designs seem completely impractical and nonsensical. I mean, even the critters, who are these kind of little furballs with teeth, and demons of mass destruction, even they are completely impractical, even for all the mayhem they do raw. Like, turning a door handle would be an effort for these guys. You know what I mean? So you could just shut the door and kind of, you know what I mean? They don't really have opposable thumbs or anything that makes them. Although they do grow bigger, right? As the more they feed, the more they grow bigger. So then the big one would probably be a pain to deal with. But yeah, we start in a spaceship. The head blobby guy is very agitated because the critters have just stolen another spaceship and have fucked off. He enlists the 2 faceless bounty hunters wearing kind of a cross between medieval leather and S&M leather, kind of red tunic kind of deals. And they have to pick like the visage they're going to put on their pale, faceless heads. And And one of them, while looking through Earth's airwaves, I guess, stops on what I assume is meant to be MTV, and the phenomenal song "The Power of the Night," which is a wonderfully generic but perfectly created mid-'80s shitty rock ballad. I mean, I absolutely love it. The lyrics mean nothing. Like, the lyrics mean absolutely nothing. It's so close to being like a Spinal Tap parody song, sung wonderfully by Johnny Steele. And so the bounty hunter picks Johnny Steele. The other bounty hunter can't decide who he wants to be. And I don't quite know why that is, but he just kind of goes, I can't decide. So they go down to Earth, Johnny Steele and his glowy-faced, white-headed bounty hunter friend, looking for critters who have crash-landed in a hayfield and have started attacking the residents. Not even all the residents, just one particular residence of a small, is it Kansas town?
It's Kansas, yeah.
Kansas, right?
And I think they do say the name of the town, because I think it's based off the name of the town in Jersey that Orson Welles used for the world. I can't remember. So I think it's like, was it Grover Hill or something? I can't remember. That was something that was also kind of common in the 80s. I remember is this sort of LA, sort of coastal derision of flyover country that I guess maybe we had our reckoning with Trump getting elected in 2016, but they kind of all came to that all came home to roost there. But there was this sense that nobody could.
So there's two things. The boyfriend of the daughter of the family is dating this hotshot Billy Zane from New York.
Yes.
What he is doing in Hay Bale, Kansas, I have no idea. But on one hand, he's the guy who's going to come and destroy the family from within because he's this hotshot from New York. And then later on, when the bounty hunters crash into the church, one of the old women in the church describes them as being from Los Angeles.
Right, yes, right. 'Cause that's always the line, right? The whole idea that this Holly weird thing. Yes, and so that's there's always that joke too.
Yeah, so you've got on one hand they're afraid of hotshot Billy Zane from New York coming down in his car. That runs and doesn't have rust on it,
right.
And which is also a problem. And they're also afraid of people from Los Angeles. So it's perfect. Apparently Kansas is the intersection between those two worlds.
Right.
Grover's Bend is the town where most of Critters takes place, and it is a nod to the infamous 1938 radio broadcast of War of the Worlds by Orson Welles. Because there they were landing in Grover's Mill,
right.
And here they're landing in Grover's Bend, Kansas. But a few things that I noted about the film. Everything in the movie, in almost every scene, is either pink or mint green throughout the whole film.
Yes.
And it's the scene starts in the farmhouse. They have a pink and mint green kitchen. The daughter is wearing a mint green with pink flowers on it top. The son has a pink top on with mint green pants. And then later on, Dee Wallace is wearing a mint green overall pinny apron thing with pink flowers on it. And the bowling shirt of the team that the dad plays for is mint green with pink on it. Yeah. And then when you go to the police station early on in the film, the walls of the police station are mint green, and the woman who believes all the conspiracies in the National Enquirer, the receptionist, she has big circular pink earrings. So for some reason, mint green and pink are throughout this film, which is baffling. But fantastic. I mean, it's a really interesting thing. But what was mad was because I actually watched it like a couple of times in the lead up to this podcast. The first time I was like, is this in every scene or is it just the kitchen and am I just extrapolating it out? And then every scene I was like, wait, that person's wearing a pink brooch on a mint green dress or a pink dress with a green flower or something. And I'm like, okay, this is just freaking me out at this point. So that's something, and I don't know. I haven't looked at all the trivia. I don't know whether that was intentional or whatever.
I didn't see that listed at all, no. So
there are a couple of things that I think, as good as Critters is, and I really do enjoy it, and I hope this podcast urges people to go rediscover it, because I think it needs to be brought in line with, Chucky or any of those great kind of horror franchises, because it is great. There are two things it misses, though. Throughout the film, the thing that is running in parallel for the first half of the movie is this bowling championship that Billy Greenbush is going to be part of. The Critters are around, and we never get a Critters bowling sequence.
Right.
Like the fact that he's in a bowling team never comes to play with the Critters, who are bowling balls. Like even when we go to the bowling alley later on, like what a great scene that would be to have someone put their hand down to pick up the bowling ball, and it's a critter, right? There's things you can do with that, right? Yeah. They never do that. The other thing that is entirely set up at the beginning of the movie and is never used in the latter half of the film is his slingshot. Right. They spend that whole time with the slingshot and fixing the slingshot and making sure it works and tagging the girl on the ass and everything else. At the end of the movie, when there's even a point where he gets a Molotov, like a little beer bottle with a rag in it and soaked with alcohol, and it lights it up. And instead of being like, at least put that in the slingshot. Right. To use the slingshot, doesn't do it. He just throws it in to the spaceship. So there's two things set up that you're like, well, there must be a reason why this bowling thing is going on. Like, that must be a plot point. No, it's not a plot point. Then there must be a reason why we're going on about this slingshot so much. No, there's no reason. I mean, the closest thing you could get to, I guess, is the fact that the kid seems to be some sort of pyromaniac, homegrown bomb maker, probably psychopath in the making, let's be fair. And the pipe bomb that he's seen making at the beginning of the movie is used at the end of the movie. He calls it a firecracker. It's clearly a pipe bomb.
He's got this bomb-making kit on his desk. His dad gives him a hard time about playing around with a slingshot, but yet he's got a bomb-making. I mean, he's got literal gunpowder. I mean, I guess it's not literal because it's probably show gunpowder, but the idea is that he's got gunpowder on his, and he's like mixing it to make his own bombs and trying them out by. I think he blew up an X-wing fighter that he had.
But that's what it's like in Kansas. Right. Yes. Slingshots. No. Right. It's like lawn darts. We can't have lawn darts. Right. Submachine guns, have at it. As many. A bazooka, you want a bazooka? You can have a bazooka. Lawn darts? Well, no. You're not allowed that. Kinder eggs? No. Can't have them. But if you want a Gatling gun, we'll sell you 5. Yeah.
Machine gun. You can have a machine gun, but you cannot have coffee that doesn't tell you how hot it is.
Yes, exactly. We need a warning on the coffee that says caution, contents may be hot.
I will say.
Or my favorite one on the bottom of a plastic 2-liter Coke bottle that it says open other end, which means someone looked at the cap and went, no, that can't be it. It can't be that I unscrew this very easily unscrewable cap. I'm going to turn it upside down. And utilizing probably a knife or a sharp bit of glass, cut open the bottom of the Coke, because that must be what the manufacturer intended. Must be. Yeah, otherwise, they wouldn't have put the warning on open other end.
I've never seen that before. That is. I will say, when I bought my coffee the other day and I burnt my tongue, there were people that did offer me thoughts and prayers.
Good. Excellent. Excellent. And did your tongue heal up?
It did eventually. It's good now.
Did eventually heal up. Did it heal up the same amount of time that a burnt tongue would normally heal up? And therefore, it wasn't a mystery at all, or did it actually heal up quicker than you were expecting?
I did. Now that you mention it, it was just I wasn't even paying attention. The next thing I knew, now that you mention it, it was a little bit quicker. So I wonder if
power of thoughts and prayers. Well, let's see if that works. I'm going to send out thoughts and prayers that people buy your book and buy my albums, and let's see if that works. So yeah, the police station sequence at the beginning with M. Emmett Walsh and the woman behind the counter reading, and then they bring in the little dude in the police car. That whole sequence is hilarious. Like, it's my favorite thing. Like, M. Emmett Walsh is he's the sheriff who's running the police station full of idiots.
Right.
And even though he himself is like this sort of grumpy, schlubby old idiot, he's the least idiotic of all of the idiots that he's commanding. And he knows it. Like, he knows how idiotic his fellow police staff are. But he hangs on in there in Grover's Bend, Kansas. But I love that whole sequence in the police station and everything. So the Power of the Night, we've already mentioned it, but it is my favorite, one of my favorite horror songs. It's up there with Darkest Side of the Night, which is also another gibberish power ballad from Friday the 13th, Part 7. The darkest side of the night. I love that. And then the Maniac Cop 2 rap, which is just hands down just fantastic. And then wasn't there like the Fat Boys rap or whatever with Nightmare on Elm Street? Is that 3?
I think so. My favorite Nightmare on Elm Street one is when you watch the credits of the first one, and there's that song, "It's a nightmare, it's just a dream," And my friend and I, we hadn't seen the movie in forever. This was like maybe 15 years ago. I bought like the box set, and we had this plan one Halloween that we were going to watch the whole thing. I think it's more than 15 years ago, actually. I think it was closer to 20 years ago. But we had this plan. We were going to watch all of them in one night, and I think we fell asleep somewhere around the second one. But I remember that first one wrapped up.
We made it through a film and a half. We're going to watch all of them. We made it a film.
But I remember the credit sequence. That song's playing. He's like, "Did you know that?" And I was like, "I don't remember that song." And we were just like, "It's a nightmare. Oh, it's a dream."
I still claim that it's only a truly great horror movie if it has a bananas nonsensical rock and or rap song with it. The same goes for like the Dragnet rap and things like that. Like I've got so much time for like tie-in tracks like that. You know what I mean? Like the fact that along with acting in Dragnet, Tom Hanks and Dan Aykroyd went into a studio, probably for multiple days, and recorded a music video for the whitest rap ever. It's whiter than anything that Vanilla Ice did. It's like the whitest rap ever. And it's a rap about like how great the police are. Like it's bonkers.
And just imagining them like in the studio with the big headphones on, like holding, almost like the "We Are the World" kind of thing, where they got the screen in front of them, like there. And was that a good take? And like the whole, did we get
that's my favorite thing about We Are the World, because the music video for We Are the World, as everyone knows, it starts with Michael Jackson and Bruce Springsteen and Bob Dylan and Quincy Jones and all those guys. And then it builds and builds, and then to the point where everyone is in the studio singing. And then out of nowhere, Dan Aykroyd is on the back row singing for We Are the World. There's no other actors there. Like it's not like a bunch of other people are there. It's like all the most famous musicians on the planet and Dan Aykroyd.
Right.
You've got to admire the balls on the fucker. You know what I mean? You've got to admire.
It's funny because everybody lampoons the whole like Eddie Murphy music career, or other, but the Dan Aykroyd blues career,
baffling, isn't it?
Right. And nobody ever really fully. I mean, I think there was some comedian who made a joke about it, like how horrible it was that these white guys are doing the blues.
George Carlin.
George Carlin. That's what it was.
Yeah. George Carlin did a whole rant about white actors singing black music. And how horrific it is. What's hilarious is it continues today with Jim Belushi, because if anything says, popular music, it's Jim Belushi. And I'd like to preface this by saying I'm actually kind of a fan of Jim Belushi. I think he gets a bad rap. I've heard that he's a dick or whatever, but everyone's a dick. Like I've heard that Jon Stewart is a dick, and everyone thinks the sun shines out of his ass. So, Jim Belushi being a dick. David Cross didn't like Jim Belushi. Oh, cry me a fucking river, Cross. Whatever. Jim Belushi gets a hard time, but we've all agreed at some point that the Blues Brothers was great when it came out. It was a thing. It served a purpose. We all enjoyed it when we were 12 or 14. And it's still a fun romp, and the music's still killer from the first film, and it's still great. But it should have died then. Yeah. You know what I mean?
We didn't need more, right?
We didn't need any more of that. He just about got away with the Ghostbusters song. He just about got away with a bunch of, again, white actors kind of doing goofy dances along with sort of a funk rap kind of thing. That's fine. You got away with that. Then he does We Are the World. And then in Nothing But Trouble, he has the hip-hop group from Oakland, Digital Underground, which means there is a cameo by a young Tupac Shakur in there, in which he, as a penis-nosed old cretin of a judge, plays like jazz organ over the top of a Digital Underground rap in Nothing But Trouble. He's in We Are the World. Then he's just like, how about we keep the Blues Brothers going? He tries John Goodman in the movie. Everyone hates the fucking movie. So then he's like, who else is knocking about? Jim Belushi's not doing anything. How about we start touring as the Blues Brothers around the House of Blues, which is, this like TGI Friday style blues bar that Dan Aykroyd owns around the world. And he's like, what if Jim Belushi and I just show up occasionally and annoy people? Apparently it works. It's bad. I mean that's his career, and now he's a Crystal Head vodka magnate. Right. Now he makes the purest vodka out of ghost farts or whatever it is.
Well, he was also in Crossroads with Britney Spears, the Britney Spears movie.
Yes,
he played her dad. Which made no. I think I reviewed that one for the blog because I was doing like these wild card posts about bad movies, and I didn't know he was in the movie. It's just like there was a time in the '80s where whatever Dan Aykroyd was doing, everybody knew about it, and suddenly he's just in a Britney Spears movie and nobody knows about it. You would have thought when they were advertising for the Britney Spears movie, they were like, and Dan Aykroyd plays the dad, but it was like, no,
I feel like Celtic Pride really knocked it all on the head. I feel like that's where he was. Or was it that, or was the Jack Lemmon, My Fellow Americans movie? Was that the Jack Lemmon, Dan Aykroyd, and James Garner movie or whatever?
That could have been too, yeah.
He did that in Celtic Pride, and people looked at them in the video store and were like, I don't know what this is. It's not Chevy Chase. It's not John Belushi. It's not John Candy. Because no one watches a Dan Aykroyd movie for Dan Aykroyd. So,
right.
And I don't listen again. I love Dan Aykroyd. Like I pay jokey homage to the guy, but I love Dan Aykroyd. He wrote my childhood. And he's incredible in all the movies he's in. And he was a really great cast member of SNL. Right. But you don't watch any movie he's in for him. Right. You watch Ghostbusters for Bill Murray. You watch Blues Brothers for John Belushi. You watch The Great Outdoors for John Candy. You watch Dragnet for Tom Hanks. Like it's like there's never a movie where you're like, oh, Dan Aykroyd's really killing it for me here. But he's great in all of those movies. But you just don't watch any of them for him.
No, I never thought of it like that, but that makes like absolute sense. Like, because we think of it like it was always Dan Aykroyd in these things, but it's amazing when you compare his career to Bill Murray's, because Bill Murray was just like, I'm going to make pretty much all the right choices for my career.
Except that one where he was with the elephant. That was
the one. Right.
Larger Than Life or whatever it was called. Yeah, he shouldn't have done that.
No, right, exactly. I think it's a certain point where he's just like, I'm only going to make movies with Jim Jarmusch and make sure I'm,
Well, then he took the whole other tack. Then he was like, I'm going to make a 3-hour movie where I have 2 lines and the rest of the time I'm just going to mumble vacantly into the distance. Yeah. Right, yeah. And you're like, I don't like that either. No, don't do that either. Like, exactly. Whatever that is. He literally went on record calling Broken Flowers his best film. And I'm like, either you're punking us, like either you're just making that, or you have a wildly horrible sense of what good films are. Because Broken Flowers is on record the worst Jim Jarmusch movie and the worst Bill Murray movie of all time. It is such a bad film. Like, it is relentlessly boring. It's a movie that has tits in it, that is dull. I've never heard of a movie that has nudity in it that I can't get through, and Broken Flowers is that bad. That's how bad Broken Flowers is, and it deserves no more coverage here. Enough coverage. Back to Critters.
I will say the one thing about Jarmusch's movies is it does astound me that there weren't more Broken Flowers. When you watch his movies, like it feels like there's a very thin line between like Strangers in Paradise becoming a Broken Flowers, or
totally, yes.
Yeah, it is amazing when I look at that there weren't any other real Broken Flowers in his career.
There was a point where he was sort of this artistic wonderkind. Then there was this point where it was bordering on pretension, and then it was just like self-referential, pretentious hell for like the rest of his career. Sadly, but that is anyone who's watched The Dead Won't Die or whatever that new one is.
I haven't seen that one yet. I've got that one.
It is literally a parody of a meta take of a pretentious film of a Jim Jarmusch popcorn fart. Like it's completely, it's totally weird. Like it meta references things in the film that only exist in the film, but reference them as if they're popular, even though they're only popular within the world of the film. Like it's totally bonkers. But at the same time, Adam Driver makes Star Wars jokes in it, and we're all meant to be like, oh right, because you would. I mean, seriously, it's the worst. Anyway. Anyway, back to Critters. So everyone needs to go out and buy Johnny Steele's The Power of the Night, because it's fantastic. Sung by the actor who would go on to be in, I think, the first 3 Critters. Yeah. Terrence Mann is in the first 3. And he is a Broadway actor. That's where he got his start. And he has the quote, what is Terrence Mann's quote? Movies will make you famous. Clearly didn't work for him. Television will make you rich, and theater will make you good. That's what Terrence Mann says.
I mean, the TV part, I think, actually, I agree with. I mean, talking about Jim Belushi, I mean, he was just sort of kicking around trying to find his niche, and suddenly he gets a sitcom for 8 years, and I'm sure he's probably set at this point.
Oh, yes, completely. Yeah. Well, now he's farming cannabis, so he's definitely set. Yeah. But, according to Jim, 8 seasons.
8 seasons.
Yeah. Blue Bloods, the TV show, has 8 seasons. Jag, the TV show, I think had 11 seasons.
Yes.
I liked Frasier, but I don't know that we needed 11 seasons of Frasier.
Yeah.
But anyway, it is what it is. Good luck on Jim Belushi, because I feel like Jim Belushi did some really interesting films. People do not believe me on this.
Right. I mean, gang-related, talking about Tupac.
Really interesting films. Yeah. He never got his due for any of them.
Yeah.
Ended up doing a sitcom, and that's where he made all his money.
Right, exactly.
And it's a lowest common denominator sitcom as well. It's literally like there's one episode where he sits down with his tray of food on his lap in his lounger in his living room he's just about to sit down and watch the game, and the phone rings, and then there's someone at the door. I mean, it's literally
well, it's essentially take King of Queens and take out the New York and take out the Gen X and just make it safe for flyover country that want to remember the boomer age, and there you go. That's what you got.
Yeah, literally the punchlines of every scene is sports, or my husband, wah, wah. Like that's
Our
literally,
dad,
oh, dad. I can't open the ketchup. Oh, dad. That's the extent of According to Jim. I don't know. It could be really good. I don't know. What I do know about According to Jim is there is an episode where Dan Aykroyd shows up and they do sing blues.
Of course.
That does happen on According to Jim. Google it. So anyway, I just want to talk about According to Jim now. No, Critters. So in Critters, as we said, the New York hotshot played by Billy Zane, he has a license plate that reads "Too Great," with the great being an 8 with a T on it. I hope that wherever Billy Zane is now, that he's driving around in a car with that license plate on it. I hope that's Billy Zane's personal license plate, because that is too great of a license plate.
I have to think for him as someone who, ended up becoming more follically challenged as he went on in life. I feel like Critters has to be the apex of his hair.
Yes.
I mean, I guess maybe the Titanic movie, it was nice there. But I mean that.
Well, I think it's a wig in Titanic. By the time he gets to Titanic,
oh, so So then it really is then Critters, where that's the apex for him. I mean that hairdo he had, kind of like the curly on top and then the ponytail, the small ponytail in the back. It's one of those ponytails that like you don't really know it's there until he turns his head and then there's
and then you see it and you're like, oh okay. I don't know who made that decision. Yeah. It's the mystery ponytail. It's the ponytail that at a certain point you just go, oh, it's there.
That?
You're kind of surprised by it.
He had a flat top the whole time. I didn't know he had a ponytail back there.
Well, of course, he was in Back to the Future as well, so I think he sported his hair there. And I think Demon Knight is like the first time you see him fully bald. Yeah. That's where he's kind of like got rid of the hair, I think, in Demon Knight, right?
Yeah.
And then it just gets worse from then on in. And he starts to wear a lot of flat caps and jaunty cravats. And he becomes this weird, like, dandy Billy Zane. And I'm like, I don't know what's happening there. Yeah. On one hand, I massively approve. And on the other hand, I'm completely confused by dandy Billy Zane. He kind of looks like dandy British country farmer. And I don't quite understand that. He wears a lot of, like, checked blazers with mauve cravats and flat caps and things, and you're like, I know he married a Brit, but did they like move to England and buy a sheep farm? Like, I'm not quite sure.
I don't know, like when Madonna dated Guy Ritchie and suddenly she had an English accent. I mean, it's the same thing. It's like
carried around a shotgun and a hunting jacket, and a deerstalker hat. She's like, one is just going out to shoot some doe. I don't know. Anyway, I love that Daughter and Billy Zane leave in the middle of dinner to very obviously go have fuck time in the bar.
Right.
Like, I love that. Like, the parents are just sat at dinner. She doesn't even wait for them to finish dinner. She's just like, I'm horny now. Right. Like, I've got to get to that bar. They drive to the barn. It's like why do they do that? Right. Why do they get in the car and drive down to the barn, which is literally right there by the house?
I think the reason for that is that the parents are easily fooled, because apparently the parents thought that the car trailed off, even though like it just drove for 2 seconds and stopped and shut off its engine. Yeah. They must have thought that meant it had driven away.
Yeah. These parents who, by the way, Daughter leaves in the middle of dinner to go have fuck time in the barn with Billy Zane. Already not a good idea. Because Billy Zane will impregnate you and he will not pay any child support. No. I don't know that about Billy Zane. He might pay child support. And the son is upstairs making a bomb. So that's great parenting by Dee Wallace and Billy Greenbush. I love that his name's Billy Greenbush. The scene where the father wrestles the critter and Dee Wallace does everything that she can to stop her son going down into the basement to help. I mean, that shoulder must have been dislocated. The kid was really like throwing himself about, and Dee Wallace was like being weirdly forceful, trying to stop the kid from helping the dad.
Right.
He could have actually helped him, but no, Dee Wallace stopped. That was a bizarre scene. I mean, it's fun because the dad's getting bitten up and shot in the neck with darts and stuff, and it's awesome. But because that's really the thing where Critters excels. You go, well, yeah, I don't want to get bitten by a critter, but then, oh wait, they can shoot poison darts at me as well. Like that's fantastic.
Yeah, it was like fascinating too how like he's just got these big wounds on him, and it's just sort of like Dee Wallace just sort of patches him up after because you think like can they kill the dad off this soon? Like, is that something that's they're able to do? Is it I mean, Billy Zane, you get it, right? Like, Billy Zane is in the film for the whole purpose of getting eaten, but the dad.
Well, also he was having, he was making the beast with two backs in the barn with the daughter. He needs to die because that's the rule of the horror film. If you are caught in the middle of horny times with the daughter of the farmer, then you're going to get a stomach full of critter, and you deserve it.
Yeah, especially in Kansas. That's
especially in Kansas. Although, do you think he dies with a boner? That's the question. Like, is he still semi-hard as the critter is eating him? Or do you think that the moment the critter attacks him, he goes flaccid, like instantly?
How does that work? Because there's like the whole blood thing, right? With like, because the
Yes.
penis, it takes a large amount of blood at that point.
Yes.
But I wonder if when you start getting bitten by, because he gets doesn't he get like his fingers bitten? Like you got to hold his hand
he gets
back.
His fingers
suddenly,
bitten. Yeah, he gets his fingers bitten off.
Yeah.
But I think that the finger being bitten off probably just aroused him further.
Right.
I think it was probably not until his stomach started to get fed upon that's when he really got. I'm just guessing. Billy Zane's peccadillos. I'm just guessing about that. The housewives. Oh, this is my favorite bit. Is in the church. So there's two sequences in the film. The worst bounty hunters in history. They literally land on the planet instead of, I don't know, tracing the wreckage of the spaceship, or I don't know, following the dead things, or following a trail of blood, or going to the nearest barn where the spaceship landed. They don't do any of that. What they do is drive through a church and then show up at a bowling alley and smash some bowling pins and blow everything up. Never once seeing a critter, or anyone who's heard of a critter or knows what's going on. Yet they assume that driving through a church or showing up at a bowling alley, perfectly reasonable bounty hunter business. But just before they rock up at the church for a totally meaningless scene, I love the housewives about to get their jollies from a Sodom and Gomorrah story. Yes. The priest is like, so I'm going to talk all about this thing in Genesis, which, as we all know, is the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. And the women in the front row are like, yes, talk to me about the anal sex. Right. They're all excited about it. That's my favorite thing.
Well, because it's like that's like nighttime entertainment, I guess. If you're not going to the bowling alley in that town, and the priest knows his audience. You know, that's a good priest there. Who,
and does that mean that everyone at the bowling alley is a heathen because they're not at church, and everyone who's at church, like what? Why schedule church and the bowling match at the same time? That seems a little questionable.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I mean, because I think there is probably something, because I've heard this about like the Bible Belt area, that church seems to just always be happening, and there's just church everywhere. It's like here in Philly you've got like cheesesteak places in the South. They're churches. They're just kind of everywhere, and it's just like maybe it's like a 24. Like you can get a cheesesteak here in Philadelphia 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can go to church, I guess, 24 hours. There's always a pastor that's like ready.
I thought you were advocating for a church where they sold cheesesteak, because I might go to that church.
I wouldn't be surprised if one starts to pop up, and
the Church of Cheesesteak.
Yeah,
you get your cheesesteak, and then in the paper wrapped around it, there's like some Bible verse or something, and a kindly old priest who's not really any denomination just comes around and goes, "Oh, the peppers in that one are delicious." You know what I mean? And then he kind of moves on. Like it's just sort of a congregation of cozy things and meats and cheeses. I could get behind that.
I like that. On the sixth day, God created Cheese Whiz. Yeah, that's
Bringing it back to the scene in Blues Brothers where Dan Aykroyd throws Cheese Whiz at a guy. Another bit of nonsensical gibberish that makes no sense in the film. But no, the church sequence is great. So you start with the old ladies about to get their jollies, listening to racy stories about Sodom and Gomorrah. Then they crash through the back of the church. The guys crash through the back of the church. The woman falling on the organ to make the like dun dun, like the jarring chord, is such a great sight gag. Like she falls on the organ and it goes dun dun dun. Like I love that. Then the bounty hunters just blow up the organ, which I think is fantastic. And then and it's an utterly pointless scene because it doesn't teach them anything. Right. It's literally a scene in the movie where they're like, we'll just have these guys show up, blow shit up, and then leave. It teaches them nothing. Right. It adds to nothing. It leads nowhere. But you are happy it's in the movie because a church gets destroyed. Then my second favorite sequence is the bowling alley sequence because we get to see all the different bowling teams. And my two favorite teams, my favorite thing is that everyone on his bowling team, the dad's bowling team, the mint and pink shirts.
Right, yeah.
Which also Dan Aykroyd referenced. They have a Ghostbuster type back of the shirt,
Right,
which is a
yeah.
bowling pin with a stop sign through it, which is kind of Ghostbusters-ish. But everyone on his team are balding, slow, old, confused, odd men who seem all too old and too tired for bowling. And what was funny is it's the scene starts and the guy's on the phone trying to get hold of him, and he's like, I can't get hold of him, whatever. He's on the phone or something, or he's trying to contact him right in some way. He's like, well, I can't get hold of him. And I thought maybe it's just these two guys who are like old or whatever. Then they go over to their team. No, everyone in mint and pink is just like an old, schlubby, bald, tired, odd-looking dude. Everyone in that mint and pink shirt team. Meaning that Billy Greenbush must be the hunk of the team. He's like the young hunk of the team.
They were afraid they were going to win with it without him there. So he was the star of their team. They needed him there, and he's of course dealing with critters.
He was the Billy Zane of their team, to be fair. My other favorite bowling team, and we only see 2 or 3 of them, sadly, but it's the bowling team with the very spangly orange shirts. There's about 3 of them. They look like really cool cats as well, but they have bright orange, spangly, like glittery bowling shirts. I've never seen that before, but I love it. I'm here for it.
Yes.
It looks like they've just wandered off the set of Grease 2, and they've just wandered into this bowling. And I'm all about it. The sparkly orange shirt team seemed very with it and vibrant. That was my note on that scene. Again, bounty hunters show up there, throw a bowling ball inexplicably hard down a bowling alley to kill a bunch of bowling pins. Again, for no reason. Learn nothing from doing it. Worst bounty hunters in history. They go into a bar, start a fight for no good reason. And it's fine. It's wonderful. It's all action. But it's not moving the plot forward anymore.
Right.
It's just delaying them from getting to the bar, to the farm, I guess.
Yeah.
And leaving the family to deal with that. And then, I already said the kid never uses his slingshot on the critters, which is just bizarre to me. And then at the very end of the movie, there are critter eggs in the barn, which leaves me lots of questions. Because does that mean that the critters came to Earth, and while they were also ransacking the farm, 2 of them went in the barn and had fuck time? Like, is that what happened?
I have to assume, because there's supposed to be 8 of them, right? We find out at the beginning of the movie there was originally 10, and I guess they killed 2 off. Which I feel like with the other critters, you'd think they'd have like kind of an existential crisis. Like, I know if it was me, if I was one of the 8 that survived, that when whoever the prison guard was decided to kill 2 of them, I would be like, this random world, this random thing that we call life, why wasn't I one of the one that was chosen to be killed? But the critters don't care.
No, they don't care. There's no morality in that
exactly.
society.
Yeah.
They're just like, Jeff died, let's move on. Same happens. Well, the same happens with like, there's a great scene, which is probably the most Gremlins of all the scenes, where they're like, the 2 on the doorstep say, oh, look, they have weapons. And the guy's like, so what? And then he gets blown away, and the other critter goes "fuck" and runs away, which is probably my favorite thing. So they have a concept of self-harm, because that critter goes "fuck" and runs away because he doesn't want to be blown up.
Right.
But he doesn't care that his pal got blown up.
Yeah.
He only cares that he might get blown up. Right. So it's a very selfish society, based on food and self-preservation. But also the fact that the critter eggs are right at the front of the barn, which means before they hatch, they're easily squashable or killable or whatever. You just flame torch them and whatever. Also, apparently people from outer space have the ability to rewind demolitions.
Yes,
which is
that was fascinating. Yeah.
Fascinating, right?
Yeah.
So their house blows up, and it's a pretty impressive explosion for what is essentially a mostly low-budget film. They detonate a farmhouse. But what's even more incredible is they then rebuild it in reverse with space magic.
Yes. Well, because my first thought when that happened, right, when the house blew up, I was like, man, this family is screwed because there's no homeowner's insurance that's going to pay out on this.
No home insurance.
This isn't covered. Critters blowing up your house.
Although they do have critters' eggs to prove that they were here, at least. They can at least prove...
But I feel like any insurance company, anything that they can do to avoid paying a claim,
Well, it's beyond an act of God. They probably offer thoughts and prayers. That'll be what you get.
That's what you get from the insurance company. So the fact that the house was rebuilt made me feel better at the end of the film that this family wasn't going to be homeless. And
well, you know why the house blew up the way it did? It's because of all the bombs the kid had stored under his pillow. The moment the space laser hit it, it set off a chain reaction with the kid's bombs, and that's why the whole house blew up. If not, it would have just taken a hole in the roof, but it's because of the kid's bombs. That's why the house just detonated. He had those pipe bombs hidden all over the place.
I know.
I mean, it was ready to go up at any time.
Yeah, it's absolutely frightening, the idea that this kid is kind of the hero of the film, to some extent, because he is like Unabomber I mean, this is FBI's most wanted kind of like, putting pipe bombs all over the place.
And
kind
he's
of
ginger,
kid.
which, as we know, is a naturally aggressive form of the species.
Right.
The red-headed are known for being particularly strange and violent.
Right, exactly. Which is fascinating too, because he's the only member of his family that's ginger. Like.
Yes.
Everybody else is like it's just sort of just out of nowhere. Here's this redhead kid with brown eyes too. I don't know if I guess it's
you were about to say everyone else in the family is normal.
No. They were non-redheads. They were
non-redheads.
But yeah, no, there he is, and he's building pipe bombs. I guess that maybe he was the only one.
They were follically normative. Right. That's what they call it now? Right. Follically normative. Don't be so follically normative with our brown hair. Right. And
yeah, so he may have been the only non-follically or follically unnormative or not follically normative.
I don't know what we call it, because you can't call them gingers anymore, because that's the G word. That's the equivalent of saying the N word. It's calling them gingers. So you can't say that anymore. You can't call them freaks of humanity. That's considered rude. You're not allowed to call them Malachi from Children of the Corn. But so I don't know what you call them. I don't know.
I remember this NFL player, Andy Dalton, who's redhead. He actually claimed that he was experiencing discrimination due to his red hair.
Yeah.
While he's playing.
It probably was.
Yeah.
Freak. It's pheomelanin is what gives red hair its distinctive color. So they're probably called phemomes or something. You know what I mean? Like red hairs are called like phemomes or something these days, and we're the follically normative.
I had heard somewhere that redhead, like people with red hair, like becoming less and less common. Like that eventually, at some point in our human history or human timeline, there won't be any more redheads. Like,
there won't be. We will have finally destroyed the scourge.
Right. No, I heard like genetically, there's something about like because it's like maybe some kind of recessive trait, I guess, that creates red hair, and so
it's because all the Celts that originated red hair live in countries so cold that reproduction is very difficult because of testicular and cock shrinkage. Because they're all like walking around the highlands in kilts without underwear on, destroying their genitalia through the cold, harsh summers that Scotland has, and that's why red hair is ceasing to propagate throughout the species.
That makes sense.
That's what's happening. That's what's happening because they refuse to wear pants or anything to keep the sperm warm, which, as we know, helps production. So Listen, I don't know what to tell you, Matt. That's got to be it. I've declared that's the science behind it, and anyone who doesn't believe me can go listen to Tucker Carlson.
Yes. I heard this joke once about the Scots.
Who's doing a whole story on redhead, and why they are freaks and why we should be allowed to call them freaks, and why them trying to be claimed to be a minority is actually a tax dodge. Right. It's going to be the whole.
That's going to be his whole thing.
Whole episode of Tucker Carlson.
He's just going to make that face like he smells something funny the entire time he's talking.
Redheads. Yeah. Thoughts and prayers. Anyway, to my redheaded brethren. My beard used to be red before I went gray. I used to have quite a lot of red.
Yeah, same here. Mine. I have red in my beard that Yeah.
So that's like the fact that I'm 50. My entire mother's side of the family is Jewish, so I can get away with making redhead jokes and on occasion Jewish jokes because I can claim that as my group. People can't take that away from me because I have red in my beard, or I had red in my beard before it kind of went grey. So that's that. So my whole people can't accuse me of anything. Well, because I'm I have red in my hair. I'm a femome or whatever it is, with the best of them. So I'm allowed to make these jokes.
That's a good point. Yeah, I've got red in my beard too, so I guess that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. So come fight us is what I'm saying.
Right, exactly.
All you redheads on the internet who are offended and who are going to write diatribes on Reddit about, I can't believe that their critter conversation devolved into a blatant attack on the redheaded in our society. Haven't we suffered enough? There's going to be a subreddit on this.
Oh, there is. There must be like a subreddit on redheads hate,
sure.
Right? That, like,
redhead aid? Did you say?
Redhead hate awareness or
Oh,
something?
hate awareness.
Hate, yeah,
I thought you said aid, as in let's get aid to redheads to stop them feeling oppressed.
That could be as well, yeah.
Buy a redhead a sandwich, you know what I mean? Buy a redheaded person a coffee. Do good in the world today. Because I just think what I really think we should do is we should segment off humanity as much as possible. The more boxes we can put people in based on the way they look, I think that's definitely the way to bring us all together, is to segment us off in tiny little portions. I think that's definitely the way we should do it, man.
It's
so
worked fantastically well, especially here in the U.S. where you've got people on the coast who don't really communicate with people, or people in cities that communicate with people outside.
Tall people don't like short people anymore. Fat people don't like thin people anymore. Pretty people don't like ugly people anymore. People with straight teeth don't like people with wonky teeth. I mean, it's great. The more we can, and then the more we can get our own little groups and our own little petitions and our own little GoFundMe pages. I think we're onto something. That's if anything, the last 10 years have proven is that that's the way unity lies.
Right.
Is to make an issue of everything. I think that's clearly. As we've proven, that's worked. I mean, it's worked, Matt. I don't know. I've never felt more together as a nation.
I feel like the most comfortable today when I was in Rite Aid, and there was a guy 3 people behind me who was ranting about not getting the shot. I felt the most comfortable I've ever felt in my life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I felt.
I love it when people who aren't wearing masks audibly spit on me, because it's their right to do so, Matt. And who are we to challenge people who are that dumb? Anyway. With that, do you have any more comments on Critter, sir, before we wrap this up?
I think one of the things, it's not that I have an issue with Emmett Walsh. I just, I remember seeing him in Red Scorpion.
Can we just shit on Emmett Walsh for a while?
I didn't like his character in Red Scorpion, and I always kind of felt like he got like a nice comeuppance when he's like getting burned with a cigar by Brian James and all of that. But I have to say, him getting thrown through a window in this film was. It was. I don't know if cathartic is the right term to use.
Yeah, you loved it.
It was fantastic. Like when he was being lifted up in the air, I didn't know what was, when the bounty hunter has him kind of, when he confronts the bounty hunter in the house and the bounty hunter's lifted him up. I didn't know what was going to happen. I thought maybe he'd just put him down. And the next thing I know, we're outside, and it's like a bar fight where you just suddenly we're outside and somebody gets thrown through this plate glass window in the front of the bar.
Yeah, and it definitely would have killed him.
Yeah.
It definitely would have killed him. He wouldn't be driving around at the end of it with a slight black eye.
He just gets up and he's like, okay, I don't know what that was, but let's get out of here. It's
because Emmett Walsh is 98% blubber. That's why he has very little bone mass. He's 98% blubber, kind of a rubbery, almost like a whale skin.
Right. He can handle those kinds of impacts, and probably how he survived as a cop for so long.
It's technically what he's put on Earth to do, is to handle that kind of impact. Right. That's the Emmett Walsh way. Yes. But no, I don't know that I've ever had a problem with Emmett Walsh. I like that there is an Emmett Walsh out there for all of us. Yes. I feel like I couldn't handle 2 of them. Like if there was another character actor who was Emmett Walsh-like. Yeah. I think that's probably why J.T. Walsh passed away as young as he did, which was a tragedy. I feel like J.T. Walsh would have become more like Emmett Walsh.
Right.
And then we would have been dealing with 2 of them, and I don't know which way I would have gone on that. That would have been, You know what I mean? Because JT Walsh was already putting on. You could see him transforming into the sealy whale blubber that M. Emmett has been carrying around for so long. You could see that towards the end of his life, the blubber overtaking him. And so I don't know what I would have done with two Walshes. Are they related? Did I just...
I feel like, the fact that they had names that had, initials makes me feel like that's, they would be the same.
I want to see. Let's look it up, Matt. Let's to the internet. That's why we have the internet right here. That and looking up what the pigment is in red hair. Pheomelanin.
What his trademark, his number one so these are M. Walsh's trademarks according to IMDb. Hangdog face.
Yeah.
Chunky rotund frame. Loud location.
I love the word
characters.
rotund. Yes. That's fantastic.
He's from New Hampshire, apparently, or he attended Tilton High School in New Hampshire. I didn't realize that. Oh, he was born in New York, but he I guess must have moved to New Hampshire.
I don't know that they were related.
Yeah, we're not seeing it. Yeah, and the M stands for Michael. I didn't know that. So.
And the J stands for Jim and JT Walsh.
Yeah.
James Thomas Patrick Walsh.
Yeah.
But I do not see that he is...
I don't see it either.
Nope. So that means that in the whole of Hollywood, which, first of all, has not been around that long, and is not that big an industry. Like, when you start... Like, it's really not that big an industry. We can name most of the people in the industry, you know what I mean? That there were two actors who were beginning to have kind of jowly hangdog faces... who were both Walshes and who both had initials as their first name.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
As if the Baldwin brothers weren't enough.
Right.
That's all I'm saying.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? We've been infected with them long enough. But no, I love JT Walsh and I love Emmett Walsh. I just don't think I could handle more than one at a time.
Now, did you know about Roger Ebert's Stanton Walsh rule? I mean, no. I feel like this is a joke, but maybe it's so in M. Walsh's bio, apparently Roger Ebert so admired him, M. Walsh, that he created what he called the Stanton Walsh rule, which essentially is that no movie with either M. Walsh or Harry Dean Stanton in a supporting role can be altogether bad. And apparently
that means this film is considered by Roger Ebert to not be altogether bad.
Right. He thinks he was okay with this. The movie that broke the rule apparently was Wild Wild West in 1999, where Ebert said, because I guess that has M. Walsh. Ebert was like, no, that was a bridge too far for him.
Ebert, yes, I disagree with him way more than I agree with him. I think it was very tragic what happened to him, but also if you've watched that documentary on him, like they try towards the end just because he looks so fucked up to make it like a tearjerker ending, but for the first two-thirds of his life, he was such a jerk.
Right.
Like he was a jerk as a journalist, a jerk as a film reviewer, a jerk as a film screenwriter. He was just a jerk. He was like a puffed up, university type with his lads and his friends drinking and talking. He was just a jerk. And then, he got cancer and that was terrible and it's sad, but like you were a jerk. Like, I mean, I get it. I mean, I don't wish cancer on you, but it is what it is. I'm not going to cry, and call me heartless, but, I've donated all my money to the Redhead fund. So at least I have some heart. I just not for Ebert, not my thing.
It's a weird concept, right? The way we are. And I feel like this is, I don't know if it's a uniquely American thing where it's like, for some reason, you can't be a jerk and have cancer, right? Even though the reality is, it's just like we know that with COVID, right? That COVID doesn't care if you believe in it or not, you're going to catch it. I don't think cancer cares if you're a jerk or not. I think, I remember The Onion did this really hilarious article. It talks about family remembers father's cowardly battle with cancer. And it's like, because it's always like everybody has this brave fight with it, and it's like this,
My thing is the same with people who lose limbs, right? There's always these motivational things where it's like so-and-so went off to war and lost 2 legs and then came back and got the bedoing legs, and then suddenly they're climbing up Mount Everest or, running triathlons or whatever it is, right? Or someone loses a leg to diabetes or whatever, they get the fake robo leg and then suddenly they're, I don't know, handing out Christmas gifts to orphans or whatever it is. Like, people lose limbs and suddenly become much better people. And I've always thought to myself that if I lost a limb, the only thing I would think is, at least now I have an excuse never to get out of this chair. Please bring me cake, booze, and movies, and then leave me the fuck alone, because I'm going to be the most miserable, handicapped person on the planet. There's no, oh, I lost a leg, now I should run a marathon. I don't want to run a marathon with 2 working legs. Why, if I lost a leg, would I suddenly be like, get me one of those hyper springy bedoing legs and I'm running the New York Marathon?
Right, yes.
Like, I don't, where does that mean that the more you hack off, the more socially conscious and adventurous you become? Like, if you were just ahead and you just like, I want to fucking learn how to fence and I want to go into space and I want to, do you know what I mean? Like, is it the more you lose, the more fucking just insane you become? I don't know.
Yeah. Is that strictly an American thing, or is that something that just happens throughout the world? That like,
no, it's throughout the world.
Yeah.
If you lose a limb, you have to get superhuman powers. That's what happens. Yeah. And that's the story we tell everyone. You never hear about the guy who lost a limb and then was just a grumpy fucking asshole to everyone. But they're out there, because I would be that way if I lost my leg in a threshing accident or something, or a combine harvester ran over my arm. That gives me carte blanche to be a miserable son of a bitch for the rest of my life. I want to be a miserable son of a bitch right now, but I have to, because I have all my limbs and I have my health and I have a wife and I have whatever. I have to present some level of humanity that people understand. The moment I have an excuse not to show that, you better know I'm taking it, Matt.
I never considered that before, but yeah, it's like if I was today, for example, in line, if I was missing a limb, I could have been quite the jerk. I probably could cut people in line. That kind of, is it because we just have like this overabundance in the world of these like feel good TV show things that there's producers or casting or whatever it is that goes out and gets these stories. Is it that there's so many of them that need to keep their jobs that they're just like, get me as many people missing.
It's like when the military father comes home and the son sees him for the first time and he jumps out of like a Christmas package on the lawn that they've built, and you know what I mean? And he jumps out and he runs towards him. Hasn't that guy been in a foreign country like killing people? Like, I don't look.
Yes. Yeah.
But when you see them like running into the arms of their children, everyone's, is that lovely? And it is lovely. It is lovely. The fathers come home and they go, A, why should I care? And B, how do we know that father, riddled with the pain of having killed a bunch of people, is not going to, I don't know, become an alcoholic or, beat his kid or, go on a rampage? He could do those things, but we're just going to see him jumping out of a Christmas box, hugging his kid, and we're going to go, and then throw a Labrador puppy in there, and you're just like, that's America. You know what I mean?
Because it makes us feel better about the fact that we didn't have to go over there and do any of that stuff. It's like, I stayed home here at this nice place, but because I was watching this guy, and he was over there experiencing all of that horrific stuff.
And I wore a pin that said support the troops, or stuck a sticker on my car, or, whatever. But then, when they come back with PTSD, or they become homeless, or they can't afford their healthcare benefits because, they were living next to burn pits in hellish wastelands of Afghanistan or Iraq or whatever, do I demand of my government to look after them? Do I go volunteer at a kitchen? Do I give money to the VA? No, I don't do any of those things. But I have a badge on my car that says support the troops. And I think and I offered thoughts and prayers, which I really think is the most key important thing to do.
And I retweeted the video of the dad seeing his child
jumping out of the Christmas box with a Labrador puppy.
Yeah. I think I even hashtagged it like literally crying. I think is what, and that just showed how patriotic I am.
Yeah, so. I had hashtag literally dead with how beautiful this is.
Right.
Which is, I love that hashtag, literally dead.
Right.
No, but you're not though, are you? You're not though. You're not even mildly. Like it didn't, you probably aren't even audibly laughing. You probably just went, and then hashtag literally dead. It's not that funny. I don't know what you're laughing at, but okay.
Right. Yeah, it is amazing. It's like there's this thing where I guess through social media or something, we've lost the ability to properly find things funny, I think, is what it is. Like, we don't know how to express humor. Like it's got to be, okay, so LOL isn't enough, so now it's got to be literally dead, or, ROTL, something like that. It's like, when before it was like when we were kind of all in person, and something was funny, we all got to see each other just laughing at it, and that's all it was. We just laughed at it. But now it's like we have to somehow convey this idea of all being together and watching something and laughing at it.
Yeah. I don't know what it is. Yeah. And also, things are less funny now, just in general, less funny. Either that, or what I find is, like, I find people will share something with, like, hashtag literally dead, or, like, the little crying, laughing emoji or whatever, and you watch it, and it's like a guy being hit by a steamroller and then having his testicles set on fire. And I'm like, that looks awful. Has someone checked if he's okay? And there's other people who have commented on it. Ha ha ha, this is the funniest thing ever. And I'm like, this isn't funny. A guy died. Like, you're laughing at, like, a guy who tries to make an ollie on his skateboard and ends up, like, smacking his head repeatedly on a concrete boulder, only to then roll out into the street and be hit by a truck, or even better, a short bus, a short school bus. People are laughing at that for weeks. They're hashtag literally dead because the guy on the skateboard is literally dead.
Yeah, it does amaze me with that kind of stuff. Like, just like I get Schadenfreude. I'm always a big fan of Schadenfreude, but I think there's a point where, I don't know if that's because, like, our commercials have become more violent too, where it's just like, it's funny to see a dad, like, playing wiffle ball with his child and getting hit in the balls, and it's like, oh, that makes me want to buy Doritos, seeing that dad get hit in the balls. It's like, that's great. It's like, oh, that's Super Bowl halftime commercial.
I thought you were going to say that commercials had made people want to be more violent, because every time I see an insurance commercial, I want to do violence to everybody in the commercial. If I see that guy with his emu again, I want to kill that emu in front of him and, like, strap him down and then, like, force feed him the emu, like, even past the point of, like, vomiting. Like, he's so engorged with the emu, and there's still, like, a whole butt and a leg and a wing left that he's got to eat. I just want to, because it's so annoying. I have no idea what it has to do with insurance. I have no idea why he's a cop, 70s cop / emu partnership who are doing what I don't.
And none of the jokes are good. Like, that's the thing. It's like, 70s cop is just a gold mine of good humor, and they miss every one. I mean, it blows my mind too. Like, with the amount of money that these insurance companies bilk off of people every month to be able to drive their cars, and they can't get better, like, more talented people to make these commercials. There's literally
an ad where they're in a helicopter, and then the joke is they're not really in a helicopter.
It's like,
and don't even get me started on Geico commercials. I want to skin that lizard, force feed it to that wee pig, chop that pig up, and then force feed that to all the other Geico. Because the Geico has 780 different mascots. It can't just pick one. It has lots of different things. 15 minutes save you 15% or more. Every time I hear that, I want to be the ginger kid in Critters building pipe bombs to find out where I can go to the Geico headquarters.
Or the Geico ad department.
The FBI listening in, they're like, at 2 hours and 35 minutes, John said that he wants to pipe bomb the Geico headquarters. I just love the idea of the FBI having to listen to the whole episode.
Right.
Because this episode has been flagged as maybe having something in it by the algorithm or whatever. And then they're like, do we have to listen to the whole 2 hours and 30 minutes of these guys talking?
They start a dossier on some sort of anti-ginger organization, anti-ginger, anti-car insurance organization.
There seems to be a guy who's very angry about car insurance and ginger people. If we could track him down, stop him making pipe bombs instantly. And then that Flo one of Progressive. I don't even know where that's going either, because at a certain point she left the ads and someone else came in and they were like Flo's family or something. Or like Flo's, weren't they like a rivalry for Flo? And she was like, who are you and what are you doing here? But they'd taken over, and I'm thinking, wait, did they fire the actress? Did she put a tweet out that said she didn't like ginger people or something, and they cancelled her or something, and then it became a thing, and I don't know. And then suddenly Flo's back again, and she's advertising car insurance with the animated cast of
the Addams Family.
Addams Family 2. And I'm like, did anyone consult the cartoonists that they wanted to be involved in this? No. They just CGI'd those Addams Family and forced them to sell car insurance. They didn't even get it. I mean, that's just slave labor of CGI characters, and I just think that's wrong.
Yeah. I think what it was with Flo, because she was like a comedic actress before.
But couldn't translate that into anything funny.
Right. She was like, well, so he gets the Progressive or whatever it is ads, and she's like, okay, so this is making me money, but it's like I'm kind of sick of these because they're lowest common denominator crap, and I'm doing the best I can with this material. She tries to maybe go it out there and realizes like, well, the work's not there, and they're willing to pay more, and so.
Well, so the AT&T girl is also a stand-up or comedian or whatever, and has been in a couple of films, and she's pretty decent. But like the last AT&T ad that I saw, the joke was, because their slogan is like everyone gets the offers, not just new people or whatever. Everyone gets the same offers. And the joke was, there's a guy in the background with a revolving sign, and every time someone comes in through the door, he has to revolve the sign, and he's a bit out of breath. And someone got paid millions to come up with that. Right. I mean, millions of dollars were thrown at that ad agency. They were like, sorry, could you run past the concept again? Well, there's a sign in the corner that says new people get the offer. But if you turn it, it says existing customers get the same offer. Why wouldn't you just write that on one panel? No, because the joke is that every time someone comes into the store, I have to revolve it. Oh, he has to revolve it. Well, that's what's causing the action and the interest. But it's also humorous because he's going to be out of breath. Wait, he's going to be out of breath? Well, because it's a very big sign. If it's a sign that big, why doesn't he just write it on one side? No. The joke is, can you imagine being the guy who pitched that? And everyone just went, I mean, give that guy $1 million. You know what I mean?
I remember seeing Noam Chomsky do this thing where he's like, talking about how companies are lying to us with their ads, and he's like, if they're really honest, like a car commercial is really honest, instead of having the car jumping off a cliff and landing, it would just be the car in the middle of a room, and you're kind of, seeing the car from all sides, and then all the car's stats are appearing to the right and left of it and telling you what the car does. For me, I feel like if these ad people can't do a better job than they're doing, why not just go the Chomsky route? Just give up and just, because it at least would save our sensibilities a little. Though I say it hurts our sensibilities. I mean, I remember a friend one time was performing music for like a halftime show at a bar, for like a Super Bowl, and I remember every bad commercial where a dad got hit in the balls, you just hear this loud, uproarious laughter of people watching it, like, oh, that was the best, I love that, I want to get more Doritos. And and then it's like the talk shows the next day are like doing the whole like oh, what was the best ad of the thing, and it's like, again, it's just dad getting hit in the balls, and then this old celebrity that showed up that you haven't seen in a while, and it's like, oh, look at them in this ad, and isn't that great? And it's like, no, it's not that great. And the best thing that happens is when one of the talk show guys mistakes Samuel L. Jackson for Lawrence Fishburne. Like, that's the best that we can get from those kind of things. It's
Oh, and don't even get me started with celebrities doing credit card commercials.
Right.
They've roped Eugene Levy in now, and my soul just died. Like Eugene Levy being like, what's in your wallet? And I'm just like, oh, that hurts. It just hurts. Like, Eugene Levy, you were so great in my... Like, Eugene Levy was the guy that if he showed up and he was in a John Candy movie or in, like, Club Paradise with Robin Williams or whatever, like, you were just like, who's that guy? Because I knew him from the film before I knew SCTV. I kind of then knew SCTV retrospectively. And I'm like, he's so funny and so, like, Armed and Dangerous, he's awesome. And these movies that he's in with these guys, like, I love it when he shows up. And then, weirdly enough, and I love him in the Christopher Guest movies.
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't get into Schitt's Creek. I just couldn't. It didn't matter how many
my
times
wife and I
people
same
told me.
thing. Yeah, we couldn't get into it either.
Everyone tells me, like, oh, by season 3 it gets really good. I'm like, I'm not watching season 1 and 2 to get to that point. Because at season 1 I couldn't get past episode 3. And I love Levy and Catherine O'Hara. I mean, I'm the biggest fans of them. They're the best thing in any of the Christopher Guest movies.
Yeah.
Mighty Wind, they're hilarious.
Yeah.
The dog one, really good. Best in Show. But, I just couldn't get with it at all. Then I see him and his son, Dan Levy, doing commercials, and I'm like, I mean, my soul dies.
Yeah.
My soul dies. I'm just like, it was one thing when, De Niro or Samuel L. Jackson or fucking Jennifer Garner or someone does a commercial. You kind of go, all right, whatever.
Right.
But like Eugene Levy, really? You've just had the most successful thing in your whole career.
Right.
Is really the next step? Like, we forgave you for New York Minute with the Olsen twins. We forgave you for American Pie 8, Stifler's Cock or whatever. We forgave you for that. We forgot that you had done those films. We had just gone from John Candy to Christopher Guest to Schitt's Creek for some people. Like, some people really loved it. We'd kind of gone, okay. Then you did a Capital One commercial, and I just wanted to eat a gun. I just wanted to chew a bullet. And it just so... As if 2020 and 2021 couldn't have served more vomitous indignity onto my lap. Because I feel like 2020 and 2021, I've just been sat here while people have been pouring effluent and vomit and cack and whatever else just into my lap. And have just... And the world has just been... If you could just sit there and just... fish heads or whatever.
Right.
And then it was like, then Eugene Levy did a credit card commercial, and I'm just like, that's it.
It was like the trash can came in and hit you on the head. Like the empty
it's
metal
like,
trash can, just after all that stuff was dumped on it, just like, here's that.
That's it. I can't, I've literally got to a point where I am reduced to, I will produce podcasts and music, and that's it. And I will not go out, and I will not interact with the rest of the world. Except to take my wife on road trips where we go into cabins in the middle of the woods where no one else is and breathe the fresh air of freedom, and then go back to our apartment. And that'll be my life, because humanity has so disappointed me the last 6 years, but certainly the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So disappointed me on every level, on every single level. It has disappointed me, from like politics to religion to the internet to social media to regular media to reality TV to everything. It has so disappointed me that I am at a point where I'm like, okay, I'm kind of done interacting with it. I feel like the guy. There must have, like in the movie Idiocracy, right? There must have been a point, like in the evolution of that, because I know he goes into, like, he wakes up in the future or whatever, but like. There must have been a point between where he was in the normal world in the 90s or whatever, to waking up in Idiocracy. There must have been a point where, like, the world was mostly stupid,
right,
but there was still like an outlying group of people with sanity. I feel like we're at that point.
Right.
I feel like by the time I hit 60, I'll either get swallowed by the stupid or I'll die of something, and I'll tell them not to bother to cure it. Like, I'll just be like, I don't want to stay here. Yeah. Like, I feel like that's where I'm at, and I'm not even depressed about it. I'm just kind of resigning myself to it.
One of the things that my father-in-law will say to my wife, because he's going to be 78 this year, is he says, well, I've got about 20 years left, but you've got 40 years, so you've got a lot more to deal with. Like, almost like kind of laughing at us that we're going to be around longer.
It is what it is. Like, and I was just talking to my wife the other day, and it was hilarious to me that, so the Chappelle thing came out, right? The Chappelle special came out, and then the person from Hey White People or whatever that show is on Netflix commented about it and said, she's a trans white woman, and she said, I don't want to work for Netflix anymore, right? And then everyone was like, wait, a white person is a showrunner on a black show? Now, she isn't the only showrunner. In fact, she's one of only 2 Caucasians who work on the show. She happened to be a trans woman, so she was vocalizing like her distaste of Chappelle's trans jokes, right? But watching Twitter at that moment go, there's on one side there's a Caucasian, but she's a trans woman, so I don't know what to say about that. And then on the other side there's a black guy, but he's also a millionaire, and I don't know what to say. And I'm just watching Twitter do that and like self-destruct and tie itself up. I was like, this is almost like a fun sport at this point. Like if I could sit on a high ridge with a BB gun, and every time someone lost their mind over something, I could just like pop. That would be amazing. I would love that, just to kind of antagonize the outraged children more. Like the more I can antagonize them, like the kid at the beginning of Critters with the slingshot. Like I would just want to do that, just to rile them up just a little bit more, just to get that bloodlust up in them, because they were wrapping their heads around like, which side of this chasm do we fall on? And I'm like, I don't know. How about you don't get involved? How about if you don't want to watch the special, you don't want to watch the special? If you don't want to watch Hey White Guys or whatever that show is called, don't watch that. Or do watch them and make your own opinion. I mean, I don't know. Do something. But it's just people talking about stuff. Like there was a trans woman who was offended by some trans comments, which is entirely her entire right to be offended by that thing. And she decided not to work for the company. Applaud her, that's fantastic. But like to see them all get like the Chappelle side being all like and I'm like, you guys are hilarious. Like it will literally come down to a situation where the left will eat itself because they're so busy. The only reason that the right have been able to get a hold of the way that they have and perpetuate the horseshit that they've been able to is because we're over here worrying about like 30 genders, you know what I mean? And look, all fair play to everyone who wants to pick their genders. Whatever they want, it's fine. But we're over here nitpicking 30 genders while they're over there just being like, we want God, football, and shotguns. Like they've decided, like they've fast food, God, football, and shotguns, and don't take any of them away from us or we'll riot. Like they've made that decision. They know what they want. We're over here being like we're over here like debating these little things, and that's fine. Like that is progress, but it's progress in a world that doesn't need it right now. What we need is to fight the enemy, and we're over here debating these things. So it's just, it's kind of bad. And I'm just sat in the middle being like, you realize everyone is messed up. Like, I don't care what you identify as.
Yes, right.
Everyone is a mess. And the world is a mess. And the only way we unite is that we all just agree on the common sentiment that everything is fucked. Like when you agree on that, that's at least a common base from which we can all develop. But you are fundamentally coming at, the left and the right are fundamentally coming at the world as if there is a right way of doing it, and that there is a final happiness that can be achieved, and it can't be. The only happiness you can achieve is within yourself, and hopefully spread a little of that to your immediate community. That's really all you can do. And looking at the big picture is just foolish and a nightmare born out of ego and the need to look better than everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the problems is that there were so many people that were just so, like, riled up for the 4 years of Trump, of the whole, like, we're the resistance, we're, doing all this stuff. And now that Biden's in office, and even though his, like, entire plan is being filibustered by these Democrats that can't get, that they, especially Manchin and Sinema, are kind of just holding up the thing, most people are just sort of like, yeah, I'm done. I'm too worn out by this. It's like, not, and so then I think what it is like the little bit that's left that still has the energy to do it. They really have the energy to do it, and they're just like,
and everyone else is like, what happened to Tom Cruise's face? Right. That's like everyone else is just focused on on that. Yeah, that's what happened. Like everyone just kind of went, like, it was so funny today on Twitter. It was just like, Val Kilmer's trending. We don't know why Val Kilmer's trending, but hey, Val Kilmer. And I'm like, that's okay. Like, I'll take that. I'll take a bunch of people who decided in the middle of an afternoon to just be like, hey, Val Kilmer. Like, I'll take that over people being like, but what if he said this? And what if this was phrased that way? And why is she writing on a black show? And why is like, I just like the people who occasionally just go, Val Kilmer. Here's a picture of Val Kilmer, and you're just like, oh, that's kind of sweet.
Yes. I find that that's the biggest problem for me, is that I'll go on Twitter to either kind of retweet some things that I see people posting. Maybe go to some like Writers Lift community things where I'm retweeting people talking about their books and stuff, and then I'm posting my own stuff. And I always have to click on, why is Bill Maher trending? And then it's like, why am I doing this? And it's like 20 minutes later, I'm scrolling through all of this crap, and like and I'm getting my own blood pressure up because I'm like, oh yeah, this is really outrageous and it's horrible and you're right, and it's like, why did I just put myself through that? Like I don't, I should just be going back and retweeting people's stuff and not like putting myself through this whole like thing that did nothing to me for that 20 minutes. I know. Not better for that 20 minutes.
It's like, it's also as famous people get older, right? Because there is and Jim and I used to talk about this all the time, and I constantly try and resist it in myself. But there is a point at which you become an old white man, whether you like it or not. I don't care how liberal you are, open-minded you are, whatever. At a certain point, you're going to say something, that is going to rile people up, right? You're going to say something. I remember Terry Gilliam saying, I forget what it was, but Terry Gilliam said something during the Me Too era, and I'm just like, just don't say anything. Right. Like nobody... Right. Like, just, you're Terry Gilliam. Can I just enjoy your movies, please? Do you really have to...
Right, exactly.
I think he came out and he was like, but Gwyneth Paltrow got work. And I'm like, but no, but that doesn't mean that anyone should have to be abused in order to get a job. Like, that's not... No. Terry, just don't say anything.
Yeah, the whole Twitter thing...
I don't know what Rose McGowan is complaining about. She got jobs. I'm like, no, but that's not... No. Yeah. Just shut up.
Right. I think that's the worst thing. The thing about Twitter is like you like the best. I think like there's got to be for I guess maybe for some of these guys like Terry Gilliam, maybe they don't have handlers that tell them like you just post what you're doing,
Yes.
But everybody wants to be the one that has the precocious like so and so's Twitter is a national. The kids are all like just loving their Twitter. Like a George Takei or something like that. Everybody wants to be that person and. Like unless you're George Takei, like you don't know how to do it, and it's just better to not do it, and just let us know when your next show is coming or when your next movie is coming out, and and.
But my other thing that I love is like recently Jim Brewer, that like very unfunny guy from Saturday Night Live, trended for a day, and he trended not because he was doing anything worthwhile. In fact, actually, he was doing everything wrong and just being like, I'm allowing people with AIDS and rabies and whatever to just come to my show and breathe on people or fuck people without condoms or whatever it was. He was just like, I just want to spread disease as much as possible at my shows. And of course, like I think Breitbart or something was like, yes, Jim Brewer. Right. But he was trending because everyone on the left was outraged about Jim Brewer. Right. And I'm like, you realize you're making him relevant when he's literally one of the least relevant celebrities alive.
Right.
He's less than Corey Feldman about how interested I am in whatever madness he's doing. Right. But you made him relevant because you were like, can you believe Jim Brewer is going to let people with, AIDS have open, unprotected sex on stage at his concerts? I'm like, I'm sure he didn't say that. But you know what I mean? Like,
right. Yeah, I mean,
he just said that he didn't care if people were vaccinated or worn masks. Right. He was just like, whatever. And I'm like, just because what happened, Patton Oswalt canceled some shows where the theaters wouldn't enforce vaccine rules, right? So Jim Brewer was like, I'm going to take those theaters. And then the theaters was like, we're fine. Don't worry about it. We don't need you, Jim Brewer. Thank you. So he was at the Comedy Possum Pouch in Arkansas, fucktown somewhere. Right. And he was like, if you're unvaccinated, you can come to my shows. And then like Breitbart picked it up or whatever. And then it became this weird thing where it's like Patton Oswalt versus Jim Brewer. And I'm like, well, clearly Patton Oswalt. But everyone made Jim Brewer trend. And I'm like, you realize you're the problem. Like, Jim Brewer's not the problem. Jim Brewer was touring for the last 10 years at these like, the Crinkle Cut Laugh Hut in Buttfuck, Alaska or wherever he was. Like, he was just trundling along. You know what I mean? You drove past a pool hall in Des Moines and you go, oh,
I love the Jim
I
Brewer.
see Jim Brewer doing, it would be like Puppet Show and then Jim Brewer, And you've made him trend on a national social media platform because of outrage you are about a show you're never going to. ever.
Yes. Well, it's like Chris Christie, I guess, said something about Biden, and that was the one I think the most recently that I was just like, why did I do this? I saw that Chris Christie was trending, and I clicked on it, and of course, everybody was outraged at something he said on ABC, and it's like, you understand that this is why ABC has him on.
Right.
This is the exact reason. You're giving them the reason. Or Chuck Todd. People hate Chuck Todd on MSNBC. It's like you're giving MSNBC a reason to keep him, or NBC a reason to keep him doing Meet the Press, because every time he's on Sunday, you just have to make him trend.
It's self-perpetuation, and everyone has learned the Ted Cruz way of, if I am just a massive dick, like if I think of the dickiest thing I could possibly say, it's the same as Piers Morgan.
Right.
Piers Morgan, like you could get a Nazi war criminal who live on TV shoots a Jew in the head, and Piers Morgan would be like, but I played golf with him and I found him to be a quite charming fellow or whatever. We shouldn't cancel this guy just for shooting one Jew. How many Jews have we saved? You know, he'd tweet something like that. And everyone would become massively outraged. And there'd be a certain group of people who, in response to the outrage, would be like, no, I think it's fine that we allow, Nazi war criminals to shoot Jews on national television. And it would become a thing, and it would self-perpetuate. And then about 5 years from now, we would have a reality TV show in which you were meant to shoot Jews in the head on TV while wearing swastikas. And that would be the show. And that would have all started from him doing. I mean, Rupert Murdoch just handed Piers Morgan millions and millions and millions of dollars, and this is a guy who walked off the set of his own morning show that people could not fathom why he was even on the morning show. Like everyone, his cohorts hated him, the British public hated him, everyone on Twitter hated him. No one understood why. He didn't want to be on the show. Every time something came up that he didn't agree with on the show, he'd walk off or cry or scream or hit his desk or whatever it was. He didn't want to be there. Nobody wanted him there. Nothing was good. He marched off his own show, and Rupert Murdoch goes, here, have millions of dollars.
Right.
I mean, it's flabbergasting. So while I'm making a joke that we would ever have Nazi war atrocities coming this fall on ABC, we might get that one day. Right. I don't know, goose stepping with the stars, like it's Dancing with the Stars, but everyone's wearing, black SS uniforms and, marching across the stage in formation.
Right. It's like the producers, right? Where it's people, somebody makes a show with intent for it to fail, and everybody ends up liking it. And,
right. But no, I mean, seriously, what we see, when we see that footage from North Korea of everyone marching in unison, that's what I see when I watch reality TV. It's like the dumb version of that. Right. And they're both dumb, but reality TV is just dumber than that. And that's where we're headed. We're headed square marching, all 4 hours of square marching on a Saturday afternoon on TV with literally people walking in line carrying weapons while America the Beautiful plays over the top of it or whatever, and people would just bang their heads together and enjoy that was on their television set. And we're not far away from that. So.
I feel like here in South Philadelphia, where I live, where there are people that there were a couple of people with guns protecting a Christopher Columbus statue that they ended up encasing in wood because the city didn't know what to do, because they didn't want to keep the statue, but they didn't want to get rid of it. So they've encased it in wood for over a year. I feel like if you had down Broad Street, you had in this area that I live in, you had that kind of thing. There'd be people going, yeah, God bless America, it's great. I mean, they had a parade for Christopher Columbus here. They do that every year in this area, which it blew my mind when I moved down here that people still celebrated Christopher Columbus that way. I kind of thought we'd all
in New York today.
Yeah. It's amazing. I mean, that kind of parade is, to me, Christopher Columbus celebrations are just Klan rallies without the masks.
Celebrations of kind of at this point, celebrations of kind of anything like that, I just like a nice secular, that's why I like Halloween. Although obviously there are still some Christians who are like, it's devil worship. And I'm like, I wish you'd die. But it's mostly a secular holiday. People get dressed up. We hang crap from our houses. We play spooky music. We watch spooky movies. Everyone can be whoever they want to be whenever they want to be it. And it's kind of great. I don't march up and down Broadway demanding people enjoy Halloween. I just do Halloween my own thing, and other people do Halloween their way, and it gives me joy. But I don't march up and down Broadway demanding that everyone enjoy Halloween or pay any reverence to anything going. Like, I don't expect people to build a statue of Donald Pleasance and bow down to him or kiss his feet or anything like that. Right. I might build a statue of Donald Pleasance in my garden, and I have every right to do that, but I don't want to demand everyone else do it. And that's how I feel about it. If Italian social clubs around the States want to celebrate Columbus Day and have a bake sale or whatever the fuck, go shoot up a rival mafia gang or whatever they want to do, have at it. Like, whatever they want to do. Have it a pizza or whatever. Go do whatever you want to do. But don't march down the street being like everyone has to celebrate Christopher Columbus, because we don't. Guess what? We don't.
Right, exactly. No, I mean, we had to listen to. I mean, what I'm noticing here in South Philly is it's starting to become a little bit more gentrified, and I think older Italian people are starting to die out. And I wonder, like, eventually if it's just going to be a thing that it just fades out. But
yeah, I don't know. I mean, you either make a world in which you can. There are places you can go to celebrate and worship what you want. Like, I'm not for religion, but I'll say this thing. At least there are churches, synagogues, mosques. There are places where people can go to engage in whatever madness they want to indulge in. And it doesn't have to bother me. You know what I mean? When they come out onto the street, that's when it bothers me. So I've got no problem with, Jewish clubs or Italian clubs or African-American clubs or whatever it is, celebrating whatever they want, with doing whatever they want. Like, that should be a thing. No problem at all with that. And if I looked out my window during Eid and saw that a bunch of Muslims had hung stuff up or whatever in the street, fantastic. Don't care. I'm not going to do it, but if they want to do it, it doesn't bother me. But the moment you come into society and want to do that, it has to be a secular situation. You can't have, and it has to be something for everybody, because you're taking up my streets, you're using my tax dollars, you're polluting my air with your noise, whatever it is. Like, it has to be for everyone. And that's how I feel about the vaccine. You don't want to take the vaccine, that's absolutely fine, but you don't get to use my hospitals, you don't get to use my schools, you don't get to use my supermarkets. You can go live in the woods somewhere and feed your children berries and have them unvaccinated and teach them whatever Yahoo nonsense you want to teach them. But that's where you have to live, off the grid. You don't get to take part in my electricity and my gas and everything else, because you're not playing by the rules. You're not a part of society. But, you can't do that. I mean, Biden's trying. He's saying, like, if you quit your job because you don't want to get the vaccine, you don't get unemployment. Like, I applaud that. I think that's great. We've all done what was right for 18 months. We've stayed home. We've worn masks. We've taken the vaccine. We've done whatever we possibly can. And we're sick and tired of you and your, ways of not wanting to be a part of society but demanding we all get sick. I'm done with it. I'm tired of it. Go die in a gutter somewhere and don't come crying to me. I'm done with it. We provided a solution, and you're not taking it. So I don't know what to tell you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I follow this subreddit called the Herman Cain Award, where these people will go onto Facebook pages where these anti-vaxxers, like, post, whatever shit that they post, like just the swill that they post that's anti-vax stuff. And then it just suddenly turns into, boy, I'm having trouble breathing. I think I'm going to go to the hospital. And then the next post is, they're going to put me on a ventilator. And then the next post is, oh, my beautiful husband Jim passed away today, and oh, he was such a great God-fearing man and all this stuff. And it's like, okay, yeah. But it's like always that's the end, right? That's the award you get for being an anti-vaxxer is you get COVID and you die.
Yeah.
And
it was like there was I think early on, I think it was last year, there was a story about an older teenage kid, I think he was 18 or 19, who didn't give a shit, went out with all his friends, like everyone got fucking COVID, and his grandmother died, and his father like almost died. Like his father was on a respirator for like weeks and weeks and weeks, and fell into a coma and came out of it and right? And they were all trotted out on the news, and I've forgiven him, and blah 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 blah. But let this be a lesson to everyone else, and whatever. And I get why we have to have these stories and stuff, but the other message is you killed grandma.
Right.
You did, and we have to live the rest of our life knowing that because you're a fucking idiot.
Right.
You killed my mother.
Right.
And you almost killed your own dad.
Yeah.
And I don't, it's like the whole people who lose limbs and become superheroes. I would lose a limb and become a miserable old bastard. If my son, thankfully I don't have one, because fuck him. But if my son, killed my mother and almost killed me, no, I'm sorry. No, fuck you. Sorry, goodbye. We're not going on TV to teach people a lesson.
Right.
You're out of my home, and you can go live up a hill somewhere by yourself.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Especially since it wasn't that much that we knew. You didn't need to do much to not get this. It was wear a mask, stay out. Don't go indoors unless you absolutely have to. Don't go into indoor spaces unless you have to, and then get the vaccine. And
I also found because we thought this, we thought moving out of New York, we would lose all the convenience. Because in New York, during COVID, you're able to order food to your door, you're able to order groceries to your door, we were able to send our laundry out, whatever it is. You have the convenience of the city. I thought moving to... And we're still on the outskirts of Danbury, which is a major city in Connecticut, but, we're up in the woods, right? And we're near stuff, there's supermarkets and stuff nearby, but we were up in the woods. We could get everything delivered to our front door up a very bumpy woodland driveway, cottage in the middle of nowhere. We could get everything we needed delivered to our door, even in rural Connecticut. So and in the places where you couldn't initially get that, people were starting up businesses that allowed you to get that, like Uber Eats or whatever it was, or people who were doing Lyft and Uber and these other car services started also to do a DoorDash type thing or a Seamless type thing. So I'm the convenience is there. There's no need for you to go out anywhere. Yes, it sucks, but if we all do this and we all get vaccinated when the vaccine comes out, it only has to suck for about 6 to 8 months. Yeah. But instead, here we are 18 months later and it still sucks. You know? And it's just, I don't understand it because on one hand, and I love the parents who are they fucking hated having their kids home. They hated having to teach their kids. They don't want to give any money to education. They don't want to pay any taxes to education. They don't want to support their local teachers union. They don't want to do that. They don't want to pay teachers more, whatever. They just fucking hated having their children home. Oh my God. Having to fucking look after my children, the children I brought into the world selfishly and dumped on the planet to just use up more resources. Fucking having them home was the worst fucking thing I could ever imagine. And the moment they could shove them back into schools, despite the virus not going anywhere, and despite the fact that under 12s can't, they just pushed them right back into the death pits of disease. They were like, oh, thank God I don't have to look after them anymore. Please go get COVID in a public school. I mean...
Right. Well, what's amazing about that is that we grow up with this idea that as Gen Xers that it was the boomer and silent generation parents that were the neglectful ones. But I mean, it's I see it on my street here. Ever since COVID, these parents would come on our street because there's a couple families that have kids, and these other parents from other parts of the neighborhood, they all come with their kids. I think part of it is that because there's a playground nearby, but the playground is much more diverse in the people who go to it. That these white folk they don't want to go, cavort with people of other ethnicities or other backgrounds. So they're there. And really all it is the parents hang out with each other and the kids just run up and down the street. And the whole thing kind of just blows my mind because it's I for me growing up as a kid, especially now that it's getting dark out, it's this doesn't seem like a fun thing, but yet the kids just are all running around screaming and doing this stuff. And
they want to have kids, but none of the responsibility of having kids. Yeah. Period.
Yeah.
They don't. And they want to use the excuse that, well, I was left alone, so I can leave my kid alone. Right. And it's just one generation is sort of beget the next. It's just this situation of We want to have kids because it looks great on Instagram, but the moment that they're old enough to feed, we want someone else to do that.
Right.
You know what I mean? We want children as a cause. We want children because motherhood is beautiful.
Right.
Everything about motherhood is just wonderful and warm and beautiful. But the moment they're of age where they need to learn anything or whatever, we can't be bothered with that. Shove them in a school. Okay, great. Let's have the teachers raise your kids then. Should we pay the teachers a livable wage? No, let's not. Let's not do that.
They want, essentially what they want is they want dogs and cats that can talk. That's what it is. They want dogs and cats that can talk, and when they're suddenly not dogs and cats that can talk anymore, when they're actually like humans that have human needs, that's too much. If you just can't put them in a bed, or a kennel or something and let them sit in.
No, it's kind of like the most expensive life insurance policy, because it's this idea that when I turn 75, my ungrateful humongous spawn will somehow look after me or put me in a home or whatever. You know what I mean? They'll kind of see my last few years out with this ungrateful shit looking after me and pushing me around in a wheelchair. That's sort of what it is. It's like we want them when they're small and cuddly,
right? And
then we want them to look after us when we're older.
Yeah.
And in between, they're just going to be a time suck and a money suck, and an annoyance. So there won't be any jobs for them,
right.
And even if there are jobs for them, the wages won't be high enough.
No.
So they'll just litter the landscape, eating Doritos, kicking their father in the balls.
Right, exactly.
And with that, sir, I have to end the show. But that was wonderful. That was fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
And for your constant support of the show, and for your message for the 10th anniversary. Did you send a message?
I think I sent an email. I think
you sent an email, and I also promoted your book. But I also murdered your last name again. So I had a lot of. I had a lot of fun trying to be like Poirier, like I was making joke out of it so you would laugh when you listened to it. But I'm like, Matthew Poirier. Like I was just doing stupid.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that I felt really bad because I was on another podcast and I think he pronounced it kind of more the French way, Poirier, and then I call it Poirier just because our families just kind of anglicized it. Yeah. And I felt bad because when I said it, I realized it sounded like I was correcting him when really the way he said it wasn't incorrect either, because it's like there's more than one way to pronounce it. So yeah,
there's more than one, and I pronounce it Poirier. I don't know why, because I just thought it was. If you listen to the 10th episode, there's a bit in the middle when I'm promoting your book or whatever, and I'm like Matthew Poirier, and I just keep making.
Awesome.
I hope you didn't mind. I didn't think you would.
No, of course not. No, I think it's fantastic. No, well, when I was in high school, they would just either do potpourri. They just call me Matt Potpourri, as just to get rid of it. Or the other thing, of course, is if you say Poirier with a New England accent, it's Poria, and it rhymes with Gloria. So they'd be like, oh, Poria, I think they got your number. You get that one? You get it? Is that funny? It's like, yeah, that's funny. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, Poria. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. I just think it's funny.
It is.
I say all sorts of different versions of it. But thank you ever so much, Matt Poirier, for being on the show. Or the other one is Matt for being on the show. This has been a true pleasure. I haven't laughed this much in a long time, so thank you for that. And come back on. We'll do Critters 2 through 4.
I would love to do the rest of the series now. This one was so great. And thank you for having me on. It was a great time. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, all good, man. All good. So I'll edit this down to it's 3 hours, 17 minutes. I'll edit it down to 3 hours. Okay. A nice tidy need.
That sounds good.
I don't care anymore. I'm just having a ball. I'm just enjoying myself.
I think that's the best. I'm kind of the way with my podcast. I'm just just do it and just go, and that's it. Yeah, and just whatever happens.
Something's gonna happen. Do you feel it in the air? Could be the fear that's everywhere. Moon don't look friendly. There's blood in the sky, and a taste of sweat burning in my eyes. Yeah. The kids are getting ready. Zane. In the street night's coming, and they'll never be the same. Look out for the darkness, hold on to your soul. It's a call of the wild.